Good afternoon, ladies and gentlemen. The time has finally come. It is deadline day in the NHL. Welcome to the beginning of our 3 hours of live coverage. We are 2 hours away from the trade deadline at 3 p.m. Eastern. We'll be breaking down all the deals that happen as they become official, and we'll be breaking down the league that has been left at the end of this deadline, looking at the landscape of the league. Where did teams fit in? Did they do enough? The teams that did what they did do enough? Did some teams miss out? Did some teams who were in the middle need to do something and now they're just kind of left there? We'll be analyzing the winners and losers of the day, as well as we have TSN going on the side here. As Darren Dreger's talking right now on TSN, we'll have all the live coverage going for you throughout today. JVR to the Knights does sound very likely at this time. The Masnikov to Winnipeg kind of takes the Jets out of the JVR sweepstakes, I would think. But they are still debating that here on TSN. A few trades today that already went down that we'll break down earlier. The Masnikov, Curtis Lazar, Blake Lizotte, we'll be looking into that. Just listening to the trade breakers now over on TSN. I thought the Canes, yeah, good point there from Andrew. You would think that the Canes would be in on JVR. Blues are involved. Yeah, we'll jump over to Twitter in a moment. We'll break down the deals that were so far today as well. John Klingberg being discussed now as well. He is a UFA over in the Ducks. Pretty much signed, like Max Domi in Chicago, signed with the intention of he would likely be moving on when the deadline came around. Yeah, it has hurt his stock. This season so far has hurt his stock a little bit. 24 points on the year. Pierre LeBrun breaking that down right now. Jenny Bello, welcome aboard, buddy. Jack, welcome in. As we're just getting started, as we'll just be a few of us probably in here in the chat for a little bit, but as the day goes on, over the next 3 hours, coverage until 4 p.m. Eastern, we'll be breaking it all down, looking at the league that has been left over by this deadline, as well as the deadline moves that do take place. Mr. Brian Michalak, Yane, welcome, welcome, welcome. Canadiens made a depth deal here. Just seeing this. The Canadiens acquired Frédéric Allard from the LA Kings for Nate Schnarr. Nate Schnarr, I think that's who they got from, was it that they got in like the Andrew Hammond deal, something like that? But Nate Schnarr going to the Montreal Canadiens. There's a deal for the Montreal Canadiens for all you Habs fans. Does Edmondson get dealt? You would think he does in this market, but I would say it's a bit more likely not than likely. So we have the LA Kings trading Frédéric Allard, another gars de chez nous, going to the Montreal Canadiens for Nate Schnarr. I'll have to look up his stats in a second. Just looking through, yeah. Straight up deal, it looks like. Let's jump over to Hockey DB. Frédéric Allard. Let's see this Canadiens pickup. Get excited, Habs fans. Frédéric Allard. Here he is from Saint-Sauveur. Of course, he must be the next Wayne Gretzky if he's from Saint-Sauveur. Nashville Predators, third-round pick in 2016. He had 7 points in 35 games as a defenseman in the AHL so far this season. 10 points in 15 games last year. Let's check his trade tree. How did he get to LA and now get to Montreal? Frédéric Allard, drafted by the Predators. He ends up finding his way to the Kings. Come on, for Braden Burke. Last year's trade deadline, it looks like. And now at this year's deadline, he goes to the Canadiens for Nate Schnarr. Schnarr, who I remember some people being like high on him when the Canadiens acquired him. Some people were excited. Yanni Hassel, the stream, favorite hockey team playing at the moment in local Finnish Liga. Have a good evening. See you later, Yanni. Always open to seeing you later on. Nate. Why is Nate Schnarr not here? Am I blind? Nate Schnarr. Did I put too many R's? There he is. No, I did do it right. Nate Schnarr. He was drafted by Coyotes third round back in 2017. Yeah, I was right. From the Canadiens in the Andrew Hammond trade. Hey, how about that for a memory? He is a 24-year-old centerman who through 27 games this year in Laval has 7 points. Last year in 20 games, he had 10 points. So If you can acquire a gars de chez nous, the Canadiens will always want to do that. Frédéric Allard, bienvenue à l'équipe, mon ami, from Saint-Sauveur. Yeah, just scrolling through. We'll go to Jay Fresh and break down the trades that were in just a little moment. Just looking at what Dave Pagnotta has to say. Some chatter with less than 4 hours to the deadline. That was an hour ago. Pittsburgh still looking, even after adding Nick Bonino earlier today. It seems like Edmonton is likely done. Ottawa could add a bottom six center. Believe that Vancouver and Chicago checked in on Alex Turcotte. Interesting. Washington's Connor Sheary has generated interest and eyes on Klingberg, Kulikov, Grant, and Henrique over in Anaheim. So that seems to be the biggest points as of now. NHL bottom 12 teams and the number of first and second round picks they have in 2023. Crazy. Let's go back to the top here. Ryan. Before I read the last name, my apologies. Mr. Hobbsy. Hey, pals, popping in for a bit before I head to class. Appreciate that. Thanks for stopping by. Great to have you in here, Hobbsy. Not much else I'm seeing about most very, very recent. So with that being said, the still got TSN going on the side. We'll have the news breaking as it happens as well here on Twitter. We do want to look into the trades that were already today. So if we pop over to Sportsnet, I didn't open up these tabs yet today. I opened them last night, so I have to give them a little refresh here. Bob McKenzie on that desk, legend.
Salary retention on a contract of that magnitude. That 4 years left, $11.5 million.
Yeah, Penguin source shooting down JT Miller deal. Yeah, it doesn't sound like anything's happening with Vancouver at this point.
Where there's been a significant amount of salary retained on something of that length and that magnitude.
Yeah. So it's that's one that won't happen, but there's still lots to come that will. James?
Remember the 2018, I think, trade deadline when we spent most of it talking about Eric
McEwen, fresh start.
Possibility on that day he was going to get traded from the Ottawa Senators. Didn't end up happening until the end of the summer, but what a story. After that.
All right, so they're just still talking over on TSN. Let's go ahead and start breaking down the deals that were today so far. As the Penguins acquired at 7:16 a.m., they acquired Nick Bonino from the Pittsburgh Penguins in exchange for a 5th and 7th round pick. I'm not sure why they didn't put a year on that. That's confusing. But they do pick up a 5th and a 7th, I would assume, in this year's draft in exchange for Nick Bonino, a player who has 2 Stanley Cup rings with the Penguins. I like Bonino a lot. No reason not to like him. Great guy. Jay Fresh popping up here. We'll go ahead and pull out the card. Guarantee everything will happen while I'm in class in the final hour. That's very possible, Hobbsy. It's very possible. That's why I'm glad I'm here. Took the half day off work. Had to sprint out of the building and drive home, but I made it just in time. It's the computer's chugging along as always, but we're going to try to pull up the cards on it. So the big names moving so far, if you would call them big, you got the Nick Bonino trade, the Vladislav Nemestnikov trade. Nemestnikov, who got traded from a contender to a bottom team, now goes back to a contender in Winnipeg, or at least a better team than he was on in San Jose. I'm not sure why it's showing me this graphic. I do not want this. Just give me J Fresh Hockey. Come on, you can do it. As Nemestnikov will have some life, similar to the Jonathan Quick deal, where he was just there for a little bit. And those deals cost money. Like Quick being on the Blue Jackets for one day, I was reading, it cost them close to $14,000, over $13,000, just to have Jonathan Quick on their roster for one day before moving him out again to the Vegas Golden Knights. There we go. Now we can finally scroll down a little bit. No, not Blake Lizotte, who was traded. It was Brendan Lemieux, as I mentioned earlier. I said Blake Lizotte. Some depth moves. Curtis Lazar happening out there as well. There we go. Jakub Vrana getting moved. Not sure why those aren't on the Sportsnet page, so we'll just have to follow them as we go ourselves, since we can't rely on that page, I suppose. So Nick Bonino, acquired by the Penguins, is a bottom 6 shutdown center and penalty killer. Of course, he's not in that offense really category too much, but even strength defense over the last 3 years of weighted average data, 94th percentile. While the offense and everything else has gone up and down and decreased, the defense has stayed very high, 94th percentile over those last 3 seasons. Even the goals per 60 aren't horrible. He's on an expiring deal. Bob McKenzie has Dmitry Kulikov to the Pittsburgh Penguins. Let's go ahead and jump into that. Let's check over this over here on Twitter. Dmitry Kulikov, Penguins making another pickup here. Speaking of the Penguins, let's see if we can refresh the Twitter feed. Hearing that Pittsburgh is finalizing a deal for Dmitry Kulikov from Anaheim. Very good. So newest piece of information in the NHL right now, that Dmitry Kulikov, not the defenseman you would think from the Anaheim Ducks, but Dmitry Kulikov off to the Pittsburgh Penguins from the Anaheim Ducks. Interesting. And as Dave Pagnotta said, we were talking about Alex Turcotte earlier, drafted 5th overall in 2019. At least 2 Western Conference teams have inquired. As an aside, I'm led to believe he was not part of the LA offer for Chychrun. Interesting. Penguins took a hard run at JT Miller, according to Darren Dreger as well. But Vancouver said, we like the offer. We just can't take it because it was draft picks. We need a center. Fair enough. So there we go. Yeah. Pierre LeBrun on that one. Not Bobby Mack, unfortunately. Thanks, though, Andrew. Penguins working hard on a Kulikov deal. Yeah. Thank you for sharing that, gentlemen. So Dmitry Kulikov, we'll jump over to see the Penguins page in just a moment to assess the Bonino deal and the Kulikov deal at once, as this is breaking here on TSN on our screens, on the TV screen.
Research assistant James Duthie looking at
The Mets at 4. Kulikov's going to be up there. But this is, CJ, you talked a minute ago about Pittsburgh. I mean, they're not done here, though.
Penguins not done here, supposedly.
I don't even know how the cap's working right now. And that's why it is interesting that they did.
I don't know how they have the cap for it, but they're doing it.
What other pieces have to fall into place?
So the Penguins get Granlund, they get Bonino, they get Kulikov. Interesting moves for the Penguins, as they want to not only say we're out here, but say, hey, if we want to compete in this stacked Eastern Conference, and it won't be easy against the Boston Bruins if they're facing them, or any wildcard team facing the top teams. More picks going back in value as well. So there's the most recent deal. Dmitry Kulikov on his way to the Pittsburgh Penguins. So Nick Bonino, very serviceable player. He has experience in Pittsburgh. He has 2 Stanley Cup rings with them. Here's his stat card this season. The offense he brought to the table 7 years ago has mostly dried up, but he has a bit of value here. So as we'll pull up the 2022-23 stat card right here, his even strength defense this season, a bit lower than the last 3 years overall, as he's in the, I think, 86th percentile, I see. If they could just pull this up, thank you. Yes. Goals and chances are average, slightly above average. And we're like, this includes rush shots, stuff like that. If I want to look at zone exits, stuff like that, okay, we're around average, which is okay for your bottom 6 centermen. You're not going to find 90th percentiles always for your bottom 6. Primary assists, he's at 40. High danger passes, 58. In zone offense, rush offense, not really up there. But he does what he has to do, and the even strength wins above replacement at 86th percentile is the most important part. Bones and Kulikov are each Bonino and Kulikov are each just over $2 million if they retain 50%. I think they can do it, especially if one is 75% retained. So Kulikov, 3 goals, 12 assists, 15 points on the year so far. I like Kulikov a lot. I remember always playing with him on the Panthers in my NHL 12 franchise mode or something. So a dynasty, it'd be a GM mode, excuse me. So Bonino, I love that for the Penguins. We'll pause on the rest of the analysis for a moment. So I want to go straight over to the Penguins to continue to look at the Kulikov trade before we get back to the the previous trades of today. Bonino. That's exactly it, Pat. Let's hop over to the Pittsburgh Penguins. Sleeper cell agent Ron Hextall trying to make things happen. $431,000 in cap space. That's before Kulikov gets added in. They have, first definitely wasn't involved, but they could have used New Jersey's 3rd or their own 3rd next season, I would think, in a deal for Kulikov, something along that line in terms of value. Their blue line now becomes Petrie, Letang, Dumoulin, Pettersson, and I would think Jan Ruda with Dmitry Kulikov, with P.O. Joseph slotting in as your 7th man right there. I would think that's what would make the most sense. It says that it's for a pick and a player. It's being reported that's for a pick and a player at this time. So maybe it's a deep pick and a guy like a depth pick, like a depth player like Chad Ruedel. Is it Ruedel, I believe? Or maybe Josh Archibald. We'll see what happens there. But at the moment, we have Dmitry Kulikov heading to the Pittsburgh Penguins in exchange for a player and a pick, as we'll wait to see the report on what the value coming back to Anaheim is on that deal. If we could just get the most recent tweets. Let's just look at my following. The For You isn't always as ideal. Let's just look at the tweets here, the following page. Further to Florida, also taking calls on Radko Gudas, according to Dave Pagnotta. I'm told teams have also called about Sam Reinhart. Doesn't sound like anything's imminent, but the Panthers have been listening. He has 1 more year left on his contract, while Bennett has 2 years left. Interesting. Maybe Brock McGinn goes back. It could be. It could be. Kaplan says it's a third plus a player. It could be that. Ruidol. Thank you, Andrew. So it could be that one of those waived players like McGinn or Friedman. I forgot to mention those guys. Yeah. Simon Olivier Lorange, about the Frédéric Allard trade earlier, he says, Frédéric Allard, défenseur acquis des Kings, évoluait dans le LAH, the AHL, at Ontario, en banlieue de LA. He's in the Ontario reign of the AHL. Le Canadien est à Anaheim. They're in Anaheim right now. Justin Barron s'est blessé hier soir. Justin Barron got injured yesterday. Si Joel Edmondson est échangé, le club se serait retrouvé avec seulement défenseur. Je dis ça, je dis rien. So it's if Edmondson were to be traded and Barron is injured, and now they acquire Frédéric Allard because they need defensemen, does this mean that Edmondson is expected to be moved? So as Eric Engels goes on to say, if Edmondson is traded and Barron is hurt, possibility that Allard plays with the Habs in Anaheim tonight. Ontario reign in San Jose, so it'll be easier for him to get there. All good points. So aside from un gars de chez nous, it also makes sense if Joel Edmondson is going to be moved out. I don't think I follow Kaplan. I got to follow as many insiders as I can. I know a few months ago, my Twitter account got locked out because it was I had created it years and years and years ago before I was 13. So I got locked out. I lost all the people I was following. So Kaplan reporting here. Let's scroll on to what Emily Kaplan is reporting. Deal's almost done per sources. 3rd round pick and a player going to Anaheim. So you would think that it's a third from 2024 if it's Pittsburgh's own. Ryan commenting, are you going to do another cap compliant roster after the deadline? Yes. I've been waiting until after the deadline because of everything happening. So yes, on PS4 and with Puckpedia in conjunction with them, I will be putting out another NHL 23 PS4 cap compliant roster as soon as the most recent roster update comes out after the deadline. I'll take it, then make my edits to it. Thanks, Ryan. Appreciate you being interested in that. So I'll wait to hear back on Dmitry Kulikov, as we're going to see the J Fresh card and all that good stuff as we go. Let's get to the next deal on the day that took place earlier on. So Jakob Vrana, being traded to the St. Louis Blues at 50% salary retained in exchange for a 7th round pick and then a contract being swapped, I believe. I'm not sure why Sportsnet does not show that deal. Do I have to go to Cap Friendly? What page do I have to look at where I can see the actual trades of the day? NHL trade history. Does it show this? Fantastic. Goodbye, Sportsnet. I will use Cap Friendly. Bye-bye. So Jakob Vrana at 50% retained, traded to the St. Louis Blues for Dylan McLaughlin and a 2025 7th round pick. I love this deal for St. Louis. It's a very unfortunate trade for Detroit. For many reasons, on top of how he was doing very well before all of this happened in his personal life, and then how they tried to bring him back, sent him back down on waivers, wasn't working out, but initially was an amazing piece. And they got him for Anthony Mantha, who was a piece that they liked as well. So in the end, Anthony Mantha turns into Dylan McLaughlin and a 2025 7th round pick. McLaughlin, I don't think he's even signed. He is an undrafted centerman who, he signed for this year at $750K. And that's about it. This year in the AHL, 1 goal in 6 games. So really just a contract move right there. Meanwhile, Jakob Vrana, in his smaller sample size with the Wings, but take the last 3 years of data overall, he is a speedy and dynamic sniper who, when he's healthy and in the lineup, is an extremely efficient producer at 5v5. A breakaway and rush chance machine with some evident defensive issues and not a factor on the power play. So definitely in that 4th percentile of defense. That's not what you're looking for. But over the last 3 years of weighted average data, he's in that top percentile of goals per 60. That's huge. And don't forget primary assists per 60, 90th percentile. Big stuff right there. Even strength offense, 80th percentile. Finishing 99th percentile. 1 more year at $5.3 million, but 50% retained. Yes, the great Dana Ponzi scheme of 2009 still biting your And thanks, Pat. And that's over the last 3 years. Now, this season, you see a bit of a dip. in the offense in that smaller sample size? Absolutely. If we go over to Hockey Reference and we pull up Jakub Vrana, we're going to see great numbers with Detroit when he came in last year, but some tough numbers, obviously, this year. Detroit signs Larkin to a massive deal and deals all of his good teammates. Why are they selling? I know the East is a juggernaut, but geez, I agree there, Ryan. To trade Vrana, maybe he wasn't going to be a part of the team anyways, but Vrana, Bertuzzi, Hronek, after you give Larkin his 8-year extension, are you really going all in on Raymond and Seider, these younger guys? Like, they're great pieces, but you need to complement them as well. So you would think, I'm still saying it with an hour and 39 minutes until the deadline. I'm still saying it. There has to be more involved for Detroit. Deal's almost done, by the way. It's going to be Brock McGinn and a 3rd-round pick going to the Anaheim Ducks in exchange for Dmitry Kulikov. So Vrana this season, only 2 points in 5 games, but last year with Detroit, again, small sample size, but 19 points in 26 games, 11 points in 11 games the year before that when he was acquired around the deadline. So with Detroit in all, 22 goals and 32 points in 42 games. The Rasmussen injury is shutting them down, I guess, Pat? So that's the interesting part. Yeah, he's in all those high percentiles, but over the last 3 years, he's only played like 42 games. So will he be able to keep those numbers up when he's actually playing a full 82-game season? He's never played that since like 2018-19. At his best, he's usually in that 50-plus point conversation. But right now, what's the pace he's been? I need my calculator. I can't believe I forgot my calculator. Give me a second. So when you get the calculator out, I got to have my calculator handy here. I always got to mash those buttons. If you give Jakub Vrana's 42 games in Detroit an 82-game sample, if you'll go ahead and do that and multiply by the points that he had, his 3 years in Detroit has been at a pace of 63 points per season. That would be far and ahead of any year that he's ever had. But say 22 goals and 32 points in 42 games. On top of that, that's how many points. But how many goals would that be on pace for? That's on pace for 43 goals. That's why you see the 100th percentile for goals per 60. That's why you see the 90th percentile for primary assists per 60. So the Blues, if they can get Vrana into their lineup, get an absolute steal here. This is a very smart piece of general managing, in my opinion. Not only getting him for a 7th, but at 50% retained. Jay Fresh saying, I like it. Vrana scored at over a half a goal per game pace as a Red Wing, but injury and off-ice issues, of course, kept him off the ice. Really hope he can regain some momentum in St. Louis. I think he absolutely can. So I love that deal for many reasons for the St. Louis Blues. Detroit just literally trying to get whatever they can get and free up salary cap space. So it is what it is. Now we can, through Cap Friendly, this is going to be great. I'm going to be able to just use Cap Friendly instead of having to jump over to different pages. The Detroit Red Wings now have $8.16 million in cap space, which is very helpful. I know that he was buried and all that, but get that off your books. It costs you you get a 7th round pick in a couple of years from now, which probably won't really do anything for you, but at least there is value in getting him off your books. If you're trying to make some moves in the offseason, say, listen, we have a great young core, we have a lot of money, let's go ahead and sign some players and be players in free agency. That could be the strategy as well. Maybe the strategy isn't to make acquisitions at the deadline. Maybe the strategy is to make acquisitions in the offseason. So jumping over to the St. Louis Blues now, the Blues with Vrana on board at 50% retained are down to $888,752 in cap space. They still have 3 first-round picks this year. They still have 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9 picks in the first 3 rounds over the next 2 years. And they have some money to spend next season if they were to, well, actually not that much. If they let Thomas Greiss go and they bring up Joel Hofer, and they let a few of these depth guys go. But actually, for the most part, they have their team here, unless they're going to be making more moves. Kapanen at 3.2 and Vrana at 2.625. That eats up a lot of the money that they had freed up by O'Reilly and Tarasenko moving on. So aside from that, the defense in St. Louis is signed. It's the core is locked in. You would imagine if the top 6 in St. Louis is Schenn, Buchnevich, Saad, Kapanen, Kyrou, Thomas, If that's your top 6 and you have Vrana as a third liner, that's amazing. Or, of course, Vrana moves into the top 6. Kapanen is playing on the third line. I'm just looking at by money, by AAV at the moment, not looking at anything else. I like that top 6, top 9 addition for the Blues very much. All right, so let's jump over back to Twitter, see what's up in the Twitters first. Lunchbox, welcome to the stream, buddy. Let's check out what else is going on here. Just breaking down that deal for your Blues. Yeah, just in time. So that's a fine trade. Can't complain about it, really, says Jay Fresh. Jeff Marek, am I not following Jeff Marek? My goodness. So now we have the details on the Penguins and Kulikov trade. We can go and continue on that thread that we were discussing. Brock McGinn to the Anaheim Ducks with a third-round pick. He's a serviceable player. Yes, he's been waived. Yes, he's been a casualty of cap issues on Pittsburgh. But McGinn is a serviceable player, a fourth liner with term. It's a bit expensive, but the Ducks need some money in their team. He's making $2.8 million for the next 2 years. He's in that 90th percentile for even strength defense the last 3 seasons. Defense has gone down, bounced back up. His wins above replacement, it averages out to the 75th percentile. I like this pickup for the Ducks as he is an all-defense fourth liner with a bit of finishing touch, that 74th percentile finishing. 2 years left on his deal, draws penalties, goals per 60s there. Primary assists, offense, penalty killing, competition, teammates, not there. Yeah, 26-game pointless streak from McGinn. So a team like Pittsburgh probably couldn't use him as much. For a team like Anaheim to be able to get him and a third-round pick, why not? I like this deal for Anaheim. As Jay Fresh said, nothing to really say about this deal. It's fair for everybody, I think. Jeff Marek's existence makes me feel 100 years old. He's listening to his pro wrestling radio show on the Fan 590 in 1999. Wow, Pat. You were listening to the radio in your crib? That's odd. You were only a couple of years old that year. Jay Fresh, he shot over 12% for the past 3 years. I don't know what to tell you. Card says he's a huge minus offensively in general. So no points in 26 games, but he shoots 12%. So he seems to not take a lot of shots, but he's effective when he does put it on net, I suppose. So Brock McGinn is off to Anaheim with a third-round pick. I'm not sure if they said the year on that one. I don't believe they did. No, just seeing third-round pick. Brock McGinn cleared waivers this week and carries a cap hit of 2.75. Don't think we see anything in terms of what year that pick is. You got it, Pat. Okay, John Liu, what's up? While buried in the minors, McGinn carries a 1.625 cap hit. So the Penguins could still do things. I think the Penguins are still players out here. I think the Penguins are still going to be doing some shopping. If we go over to Pittsburgh, I wonder if sorry, I have to look at the trade list here on Cap Friendly first. As soon as it's updated, we'll be able to look at the Penguins. We'll probably have to go back and continue this strand once again in a few minutes once we find out what year that pick is. But a nice little haul for the Ducks. For Dmitry Kulikov, who was having an okay year on a bad team, they get a third and a player that they can keep over the next few years in exchange. Yeah. No reason why they shouldn't do that. Not seeing the deal there just yet. But I do like it for the Penguins. Excuse me. Jay Fresh, I'm sure, will be posting the Kulikov card in just a moment. A lot of my reliance comes on him. Love me some Jay Fresh. Appreciate him and all that he does. Just says a third-round pick as of now. In the Domi breakdown yesterday, I had said a 2023 second for Domi because that's what the fourth period had reported, but ended up being a 2025. Trade bait board. Get excited, Columbus fans. We simulated the draft lottery, see who lands Bedard, and yeah, thanks. I can't, honestly, I just can't stand, like, pressing the draft lottery button on Tankathon for fun is one thing, but to dedicate like an hour of time when they said, oh, Columbus, get excited. Yeah, there's no reason to get excited for anyone in the draft lottery. Who knows? Newly acquired Yotes Kesselring making his NHL debut. Nick Schmaltz game time decision tonight. Josh Brown isn't quite ready, and Vejmelka will start in goal. Vejmelka at one point rumored to be moving to the Kings, right? And never ended up happening. Andrew saying, yeah, the Penguins are not done. Got to flip some of their 10 NHL D-man. Maybe Kulikov is a flip. I would think they would keep Kulikov. I would think that if there's a flip happening, it would be, how do you tell me how to pronounce this name? It was, let me scroll back up. Ruidel. Yeah, Chad Ruidel or Pierre-Olivier Joseph. I've heard that P.O. Joseph was in some conversations, but both these guys have term for cheap AAVs, right? So, but at the same time, somebody's got to move. You now have 8 defensemen with Dmitry Kulikov in there. Paying dead cap to Jack Johnson definitely hurts. Brock McGinn, getting him off the books is also good. So Owen Pickering also in the system, Ty Smith in the system. These guys are going to be needing to play next season. So if you have Ruedel and P.O. Joseph signed on for next year, you're going to tell me you have Ty Smith. Maybe forget Oliver Pickering just yet. Let's say Ty Smith, Petrie, Letang, Pedersen, Ruda, Joseph, Ruedel. There's 8 again. Excuse me, there's 7 right there. So is that the 7 you run with? I don't know. P.O. Joseph better not be going anywhere. I don't think he would, but I did hear some conversation of that. Hobbsy, Oilers might have something cooking. Rashad reported that Holland had a presser scheduled for roughly around now, but it has been delayed until after the deadline. I don't know. Dave Pagnotta had reported earlier that the Oilers are likely done, but of course anything can happen as the landscape continues to change. Just checking over in the Discord server now. Been delayed until the 1:15 Pacific, right? Or no, Mountain Time. Yeah. Interesting. So we'll just continue to wait on the details of the Kulikov deal for what year the pick is and see what his card is as well. But worst case, we'll continue breaking down the rest of the trades that have happened so far today, as we're now an hour and a half away from the trade deadline. Let's show these 2 tweets. Come on, you can do it, Twitter. Come on, you can do it. Sounds like a few teams are still in the mix for JVR. Vegas remains. I wonder about the Avs and if Mini circled back. All right, so we'll continue to wait on Kulikov. Until then, let's go back to breaking down the deals that have been so far today. The Vancouver Canucks acquire a 4th-round pick in exchange for Curtis Lazar from the New Jersey Devils in exchange for Curtis Lazar. Lazar joins in New Jersey at a $1 million cap hit. So I think that just about does it. Their last little bit of available money goes to Curtis Lazar, if I'm remembering their numbers correctly. Nolan, what up, Data? Thanks for keeping me informed while I work. Absolutely. Let it run in the back while you're going. Great to have you in here, Nolan. Thank you. New Jersey Devils, New Jersey had $0 in projected cap space using their last little bit on the Curtis Lazar. They moved their 4th-round pick in 2024, so they still have their 2nd, 4th, 5th, 6th, 7th this year, only moving out their 1st and their 3rd. And next year, they've only moved out their 2nd and their 4th. So of their 9 top 3 picks in the next 3 years, they still have 6 of them. I like that a lot. A tidy little bit of work for New Jersey. We'll look at that at the end of the this breakdown. But I think the Devils are big winners this deadline. Love that pickup for the Devils. Yes, Hobbsy. But the Devils at the same time are in a scary situation. Yeah, they're all in, but they got to make it through the Devils, through the Rangers, through the Bruins. And then if they don't, you better hope that Bratt and Meyer and all these Shrangovich, they're all going to cost money. Dawson Mercer, only 1 more year till he's going to need his money. It's the Devils. It's not like they're going to collapse or anything like that, but they will not be the team that they are next season. With all these expiring deals, it's safe to say they will not be the same team next year. So the Devils are really going all in. They have a little extra money. They say, let's throw it on some Curtis Lazar. Why not? I like Curtis Lazar as well. Let's check out his numbers right here. Now that we saw Jakob Vrana. Curtis Lazar, come on. There he is, 37th percentile, a defensive 4th-line forward. 2 years left on his deal as well. That's the value. A lot of teams, Tampa, Toronto, New Jersey, with the uncertainty of the salary cap and how so many issues with the salary cap between teams in the league, there is so much value in getting a player with term and at a low AAV. So Curtis Lazar, not the craziest piece, but you get a 4th-round pick for him, likely in part due to, if I'm Vancouver, I get a 4th-round pick in part likely because of the cheap deal that I signed him at. So he is in that 84th percentile for even strength defense over the last 3 years. This season, a drop-off in his overall play and his defense, although the offense has come up a bit. The finishing is down. The defense is way down as well. Still fairly above average, but still way down from that like 90th percentile that he was in last season. 84th over the last 3 years weighted. Offense isn't bad either. His penalties that he draws, 50th percentile, is in the middle. Nothing crazy to write home about, but he's a defensive 4th-line forward, and he is going to be on the Devils likely for the next 2 years after this one at that cap hit. So I like it for the Vancouver Canucks to just say, we don't need him. He's not a player that we are going to foresee ourselves really using. And I like it for the Devils because they get him for cheap and they get him at term with $1 million cap hit. So win-win deal right there. The Devils get stronger and the Canucks say, hey, let's get a draft pick out of it. Why the heck not? So Vancouver now with a 4th-round pick. Let's close out New Jersey, close out St. Louis, and go over to Vancouver here on Cap Friendly. Let's go ahead and see what's happening here. They are also not, they have no salary cap space as well, but they get another pick, another mid-round pick. So over the next 2 seasons, they have 5 fourth-round picks over the next 2 years. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10 picks within the first 4 rounds over the next 2 seasons. And you would think that it's going to get more, excuse me, as they have the potential of, I don't know, JT Miller doesn't seem to be moving, but he was talked about moving at one point. Brock Besser, the tires have been kicked on Brock Besser. Thatcher Demko as well. So I would think more value coming back Vancouver's way. Let's jump back over to Twitter. Got to make sure every few minutes, always to keep refreshing. Never want to miss out on anything, even though we got the Discord server, got the people in the chat. We got TSN on the TV to my left. We still got to check out everything as it happens. Reminder, players traded after the trade deadline are ineligible for both the regular and postseason at the NHL level. Signing a UFA after the deadline is eligible for the regular season, but not the postseason. Yeah, I remember Marty Turco was signed after the deadline once, and he played in the season, but he wasn't able to play in the postseason. Shayna saying, did you feel a chill in the air, or is that Pittsburgh's playoff chances running cold? How much deeper will Ron dig as his team attempts to swing big? As the Penguins continue to slide, we're all just here along for the ride. XOXO. I believe in the Penguins. I believe in them. It's going to be tough. I don't think they'll beat Boston if they play them, but I do believe in Pittsburgh, at least putting up a good fight. I like them a lot. Adding 3 players aged 31, 32, and 34, soon to be 35, is a good bit. Yeah. So Kulikov are still going to wait to see the year on that pick. But yeah, that's Vancouver's situation. That's New Jersey's situation. I like it for both teams, but I like it more for the Devils, of course. The LA Kings make a similar deal, but now there's a piece going back the other way. They acquire Zach McEwen from the Philadelphia Flyers, a player who can sometimes have a bit of offensive magic out there. Obviously not very much at all, but I like Zach McEwen, and he comes to LA, a depth piece. They move out Brendan Lemieux, which frees them up $425,000. And to get him out and to bring McEwen in, it costs them a 5th-round pick in 2024. I like McEwen. Brendan Lemieux, I don't know if he was doing much for them. Let's see what we got. Wow, yikes. Yeah, obviously here's the offense I'm talking about up here. Obviously, more of a hitter than a playmaker or a shooter. But Zach McEwen goes to the Kings as who has a lifelong passion for throwing hits and taking penalties. Sometimes he has those weird flashes of offense. I feel like I've seen those before, as he had decent offense for a guy in the first percentile who just hits basically. Offense being in like the 25th percentile is odd. Even strength offense the last 3 years evens out to the 29th percentile. But he is an expiring deal. He is a guy who throws a lot of hits. He's going to bring some physicality back to that Pacific Division. Very low percentile in terms of wins above replacement. He's not going to be that guy that gets you wins. He's not the difference maker, but he is a solid depth piece to have out there when you are wanting to throw some big hits and make a statement out there and have some rough rock'em sock'em hockey. That's what the Kings wanted. In exchange, they move out Brendan Lemieux, who is a 4th-line defensive winger with a lifelong passion for throwing hits and taking penalties as well. They move out Brendan Lemieux, who had higher offense and higher defense, but wasn't cutting it this year. As you can see in 2022-23, was not cutting it this season, nor was he, what's the word I'm looking for? I guess he wasn't probably throwing hits in quite the same way. We'll look at their numbers breakdowns in a second. Lemieux, much higher for the offense, much higher for the defense. So I like this pickup for the Flyers to be able to move out McEwen and get Lemieux, because they don't need McEwen right now. To get Lemieux and get a pick out of this is good. I think the Flyers win in terms of value, but the Kings do get the type of player that they wanted, I suppose. I guess Lemieux wasn't cutting it. That may just be as simple as that. Brendan Lemieux, as they'll have Mario come out. Hold on. Lemieux. Wait. Merci. Brendan Lemieux. Habs get a 5th for salary retention. Is that it? Salary retention. Where's that, Tic Tac? In this Lemieux trade, is that it? Because Cap Friendly didn't have him involved. The Habs are getting in the Bonino trade. So the Montreal Canadiens acquire a 5th-round pick for brokering the Bonino trade between San Jose and Pittsburgh. So that wasn't a part of the Cap Friendly. I'm surprised it wasn't a part of that. So I guess the 5th and the 7th that San Jose got, the 5th goes to Montreal. And it's just they basically got a 7th. Is that it? So the Canadiens are playing third-party broker, and they get a 5th-round pick. Hey, how do you do? Thank you, Tic Tac, for pinging me. How about that? Kent Hughes, there you go, buddy. Wake up and smell the coffee. There you go. There you go, papa. So the Montreal Canadiens going ahead and getting themselves a draft pick. Why not? So Brendan Lemieux, let's see this. How many hits does this guy throw? Let's see it. He has thrown 79, 122 last season. So over the course of an 82-game season, he's usually good for how many hits? He's usually good for 190 hits in an 82-game season. So he's hitting at least twice a night usually. And they go ahead and acquire. It's not all just about the hits, but I'm curious because they're similar player types. They hit and they take penalties. So if I go ahead and take Zach McEwen, come on, hockey reference. Mike Greer Masterclass. Another Mike Greer Masterclass. Zach. There's no Zach M's. Is it with a K? There we go. Zach McEwen with a K. Kulikov pick is 2024 per Lisa Dillman. Thank you, Lisa Dillman. And thank you, Hobbsy, for sharing that. Everyone who breaks news basically will get a follow from me. Anyone who can break news gets a follow. So a 2024 pick. Hextall is one of those clickbait shell YouTubers. NHL franchise mode challenge. 30+ players only, accepting all trades. That's good. Tic Tac. Sorry I'm late. Someone thought Friday afternoon would be a perfect time to start telling me her life story during a work meeting. Come on. We got a deadline to go to. I got to quote tweet that one. LOL. This is good. That's good content. Nice little LOL. Let me throw in a little laughing emoji for Jay Fresh. How much Jay Fresh does for us. Love me some Jay Fresh. Let me give the loudly crying emoji. There we go. So Dmitry Kulikov, it's going to be a 2024 third, and Brock McGinn going back to the Anaheim Ducks. That's great. So if the Habs take on 25% of Benino's contract, that is $116,000 of cash. So they basically just bought a 5th-round pick in exchange for $116,000. Lisa Dillman. Let's see that. So pretty much the going rate. It's pretty much the going rate. Is Dillman from The Athletic? Or no, writing about Anaheim Ducks and NHL 4. Okay. It is 2 in the 3rd. Hold on. Oh, okay, overall. Just checked. Pick is 2024. Will update. Okay, perfect. Thank you, Lisa. You get a follow. I'm off to class. We'll try to hop in later. Thanks, Hobbsy. We'll be here. We'll be here till 4 p.m. Eastern. So thank you, Lisa, for that information. Zach McEwen. How many hits does this guy throw? Back to the McEwen trade that we were breaking down. Zach McEwen. He throws, drum roll, please. An average of 186 hits per 82 games. So he's hitting about the same rate, but this season much more. I guess at the start of his career was less. So 159 and 75, 130 and 46 this year. This year he's averaging 130 divided by 46, 2.83 hits per night. Gotcha. Zach McEwen. There you go. So there are the details as well on Dmitry Kulikov, who gave me a like on this tweet. Shout out to who gets a shout out. Come on, you can do it, Twitter. You can do it. Next up, we'll go ahead and start breaking down the Sunny. Thanks, Tic Tac. Next, we'll go ahead and break down the next trade to come after that, which is the Nate Schnarr. Well, we already kind of broke that down. Frédéric Allard, peut-être il était échangé à cause d'un échange qui vient bientôt pour Joel Edmondson, parce que si Edmondson est échangé, le Canadien doit avoir des joueurs ce soir, et alors avec le Reign d'Ontario, de Ontario Reign, sont déjà en Californie pour un match ce soir, je pense. So if that works out, that Joel Edmondson is traded, Frédéric Allard comes to Montreal and can play in their lineup right away because they'll need players tonight with Justin Barron injured yesterday. Nathan Schnarr goes to the LA Kings. The Canadiens had acquired him from the Andrew Hammond trade from the Devils last year, the year before that. And the year before that, I think. Am I? regardless, had only a handful of points as a centerman down on Laval with the Rockets down there. So back to Jay Fresh over here. Jay, buddy, what do you got for me? Looking for that Kulikov card. I mean, we'll see Nemesnikov in a second. We'll get to him in a moment. No card on Kulikov yet. Yeah, Alag is already in San Jose to play against the Barracuda, so he's near Anaheim. Exactly. If the Canadiens need him because Barron's injured and Edmondson is out, then they will need to have players tonight, and Allard would be one of them. Et un gars de chez nous, a guy from here. The Quebecois are going to love that. Come on, Twitter, you can do it. Canadians getting a 5th-round pick for brokering the Nick Bonino trade. Love to see that Kent Hughes masterclass. I'm surprised on the value that the Canucks got for Bonino, almost nothing. JVR follow-up. Minnesota and Winnipeg are out. Told Colorado is indeed still in there with Vegas and Seattle. So it sounds as though the JVR sweepstakes are down to Colorado, Vegas, and Seattle. We'll speculate which team could get them after we're done breaking down all the trades of the day. Do they not have the Nemesnikov trade here? But I don't understand why some trades are here and some trades aren't. But the Nemesnikov trade... let me just pull up the details on that one, since they're not on cap friendly. Annoying. It's Nemesnikov to Winnipeg for a 4th-round pick in 2025. So Nemesnikov goes to the Winnipeg Jets. He finds his way back onto a contender, which is great. Bonino is the team taking care of that by sending him home. That makes sense as well. Just I'm surprised. Was there that much leverage in Bonino wanting to go to the Penguins that they can only get a 7th out of it, with the 5th having to go to the Canadiens to broker the deal as well? Essentially, they lost value by losing out on the 5th that could have been theirs. Come on, Nemesnikov. There you go. So now Nemesnikov, who was on the Lightning, got traded to the Sharks and now goes to Winnipeg for a 4th-round pick in 2025. He is a versatile bottom 6 defensive forward. I like Nemesnikov a lot. I think cap friendly waits until at least one of the teams confirm the deal. I guess that's it, eh? Even though Pierre LeBrun already confirmed, I guess they wait for the teams to confirm it. So Nemesnikov, 80th percentile of even strength defense the last 3 years. Offense was non-existent in 2020-21. And then he gets the last couple of years being average to above average. But his wins above replacement percentile has dipped a little bit. He is in there. He's in there for offense, average, slightly below average offense, slightly below average goals per 60. But his even strength defense, that 80th percentile, is of much value to Winnipeg as they pick up Nino Niederreiter, they pick up Vladislav Nemesnikov, a couple of pieces that really are going to help them out, I would think, in the wide open Western Conference. He is on the final year of a $2.5 million deal, can play wing, can play center. I like it for Winnipeg a lot, and the Sharks get some value out of it as they weren't going to probably use him anyways, it sounded like. So there you go. Nice little deal for the Jets. So Brendan Lemieux we saw. Kulikov we saw. McGinn we saw. We're just waiting on the Kulikov details on the Jay Fresh card. But that's about it for trades that we missed earlier on today. Now, if we do start to lull a little bit, we're looking to JVR, but if we do start to lull, we'll start to break down the week that was as well. Facilitating that deal, they get that. Yeah, okay, so let's start just looking at the JVR potential as well. I'm curious to see that. Avalanche, Kraken, and Golden Knights all in on JVR. So let's start to speculate this. Let's see. I'm looking forward to hearing what you have to say down there as well in the comments. Let's start with Vegas. If Vegas wants to acquire JVR, and let's assume, by the way, that he makes $77 million, right? So 0.75%, he would be 25% since 75 retained. Assuming another team is playing broker, his cap hit will only be $1.75 million. For Vegas to take on $1.75 million of JVR, they'd have the value to get it. They have a couple thirds this year. They have a second next year, maybe even costs a first involved as well this season as well, or next season, whatever. They have all their firsts. They have a couple seconds. They would likely have to move somebody out as well. Barbashev not moving, Bluger not moving, Kessel not moving. I would think it could be Brett Howden if somebody has to move out. I could see that. I could see Brett Howden having to go back in the deal. But I think he's been doing well enough with Vegas, and he's an RFA. It'll be tough to make the money work, I think, for Vegas. It'll be tough to make the money work. Now let's check out the Colorado Avalanche. who have made some trades. They picked up Lars Eller, and they got Jack Johnson back. But I don't know, Seattle hasn't made any trades, so I'm sure they're pushing. They have no second, third, or fourth this year, second or third next year, or second the year after. But they still have all their firsts and a third in 2 years. You would think that if Colorado is in on it, that means that the price tag for JVR has to include a first-round pick. That has to include a first-round pick, or they'd be giving up more value in terms of players. But the player who you would think would be like 10 in the 10 spot for the trade bait board, now because of how the market has dried up, they now in much higher demand. Avs have so much room because of LTIR with Landy and EJ out for the year. Exactly. So although their cap space says 142,000, they can still play with the numbers, I would think, a little bit more. Looking over hold on, it's got a ping over in the Discord server. Always got to check those pings. Habs get a fifth. Yeah, we saw that. Yeah. Thank you very much. Always got to check those pings when they come in. Samuel Girard, what a great contract it is. Always love to see that. You would think that if a player is moving out, because Cale Makar is now on the IR, does he move to LTIR? I'm not sure. Eric Johnson maybe moves to LTIR to make it work. But I think the Avalanche could make it happen quite easily. I don't think they have to play too much. I think just transferring Eric Johnson to LTIR is enough to do it, because then there's that $6 million right there. They can even do more. So I think JVR would just be able to be picks for the Avalanche. They would not have to move out a pick like the Vegas Golden Knights likely would have to. Over on Seattle, though, I would think that Seattle is the team that's probably scariest, because they have all their picks, right? They have about 896,000 in cap space. They have all their draft picks minus a conditional fourth they traded out this year. They still have a first, 3 seconds this year, their third, 2/3 next year. They have the most value in terms of draft picks, so it depends on what Philadelphia wants for JVR. They don't have to move out anybody to make it happen, I don't think. Maybe they could just play around with like putting Ryan Donato on waivers. I'm not sure about that, but if they did have to move somebody out, you would think that maybe Donskoy gets transferred to LTIR. I know Burakovsky coming back sooner rather than later, so they don't want to put him there. Chris Drieger is buried. I would see it working out most for the Kraken. If I have to put my money on it, let me know your predictions down below. I would think that JVR to the Kraken for, let's say, a 2023 first, or they want to. I don't know about that, because they'll have a late first this year, but they want to get more pieces in their system, their prospect pool. So maybe a 2 seconds. Could they convince the Flyers to do that? Meanwhile, the Avalanche have less picks, but could make it happen. It's Vegas that I don't see probably getting JVR. JVR, by the way, let's go over to the Philadelphia Flyers now. And while that screen is loading, we'll just take a quick moment here to refresh the Twitter world. Seven new tweets, always exciting to see. So the full details on the Bonino trade, here they are. Let's read this. Okay, so there are even some players involved. So here are the full details on the Nick Bonino trade. Bonino happening at 7 a.m. this morning, and we get full details at almost 2 p.m. The trade involves 3 separate transactions. San Jose trades Bonino and their 2024 fifth to Montreal in exchange for the rights to Arvid Henriksen. I don't know Henriksen. Let's take a pause. Pause right here. So the Canadians acquire the fifth and broker the deal in exchange for Arvid Henriksen. Henriksen, I know a lot of Canadians prospects. I can't say that I really know Arvid Henriksen. 7th round pick in 2016. Okay, you can't blame me. Been playing with Lake Superior State University. A defenseman who does not look to be making the jump, I would not think, at 25 years of age, playing in the CCHA. So just a piece moving back, not really anything more than that. So the Canadians essentially getting him for nothing, at the fifth for nothing, just $116,000 that it costs to acquire. San Jose then trades Tony Sund. Big Tony, going to Pittsburgh. Tony Sund. We want to look at everything from every angle, make sure we're seeing entire coverage here. Big Tony, unsigned player playing, undrafted player playing over in Sweden. Defenseman, 9 points in 40 games, 16 and 45 last year. All right, Tony. He was just signed when? Let's see this. Tony Sund in 2019, actually. It just never made the jump over, I suppose. So again, not really any value in terms of the players being moved around, I have to say, unfortunately. Sorry, I was just looking at the Discord server there. In exchange for Pittsburgh's 2024 fifth round selection and Pittsburgh's 2023 seventh round selection, the conditional 2024 fifth becomes a 2024 fourth if the Penguins make the Eastern Conference Final this season. Montreal trades Bonino to Pittsburgh in exchange for Sund and will retain 50% of Bonino's salary. So the Canadians, in the end, get Tony Sund and trade out Arvid Henriksen in exchange for a 2024 fifth and having to retain 50% of Bonino's contract. Meanwhile, the Penguins get Nick Bonino at like 75% retained, and the Sharks get a fifth that can become a fourth and a seventh. The end. There are all the details on the Nick Bonino deal. Full details there. Thank you. Don't see anything else. Let's keep scrolling here. There are the full details, yeah, in a more viewer-friendly way. Pittsburgh gets Bonino. San Jose gets Henriksen, a fifth and a seventh. And Montreal gets Tony Sund, a fifth and retention of salary. That's about it for current details. Looks like it. Canadians are getting a third. What? No, they're not getting a third. They're getting a fifth. Yeah. Puckpedia is saying a third. I think they meant to say that they're the third team brokerage, but they're getting a fifth in 2024 in exchange for making that deal happen. So now that the Sharks, I just saw, announced that deal as well, let's see if Cap Friendly makes a change and edits to their site here. I'll be curious here. Yeah, there we go. There it is. So there are all the official details once again. Still, Penguins acquire. Nick Bonino goes over here. I guess they need to put in 2 rounds of trades. I'm not sure. But yeah, the Canadians, a couple of active deals here as they broker a deal, get Tony Sund and a 2024 fifth, and they acquire Frédéric Allard. We're now closing on the 1 hour mark where we are about an hour and 2 minutes away, an hour and 2.5 minutes away from the 3 p.m. deadline. We'll keep going until 4 p.m. Eastern, breaking it all down. I'm hesitant to start looking at too many more things because I still want to see that Kulikov card, but it doesn't seem to be coming, eh? Make sure to join us over on the Discord server, link in the description if you want to discuss more, if you want to be in on the discussions with everyone as it happens. Trade breakers. Time for the annual reminder. Trades are still announced after 3 p.m. Exactly. That's why we're going till 4 o'clock since some trades. And there have been years where they go as late as like 6 o'clock, right? This is Adam Engstrom's defensive partner. Interesting. Adam Engstrom. Let me pull this up for a second. Adam Engstrom. So the Canadians get Tony Sund, who, although he is undrafted, hasn't played in North America, anything like that, he is the defensive partner of Adam Engstrom, who is a 92nd overall selection of the Montreal Canadiens in last year's draft. Third-round pick who has 16 points and 40 points with Rögle over in Sweden. So that's very interesting. Not only do they get that defenseman who, I don't know if he'll ever be anything or go anywhere, but if he were to, maybe that would be cool to have them both in the Montreal Canadiens organization. But I wouldn't be surprised if it's just more of a coincidence than anything because they just need to take a contract back. So there are all the details on that 3-team deal. Nick Bonino going to the Pittsburgh Penguins. And I like it for Pittsburgh. Let's go ahead and check out the Penguins now that we know that. We still don't have the Kulikov trade on here just yet, but we will be able to go over to Pittsburgh and see how things look a bit more realistically now that Bonino is a part of the team at 50% retained. Let's see what Cap Friendly has for the Penguins. Let's go over here. The Pittsburgh Penguins. I forgot that we want to look at Philadelphia for JVR. We'll get to that in a second. So the Penguins now have $198,000 of cap space with their first, New Jersey's third, their fifth, sixth, and then Florida and Toronto's sevenths in the 2023 draft. They have all their picks in 2025, and they're only missing their fifth conditionally in 2024. But they still have a lot of picks out there. Bonino comes at $1.025 million. That Jeff Carter deal is going to hurt them a little bit at $3.125 onto next year as well. That's going to hurt a little bit towards the time when cap gets even more tight. Dumoulin's contract expiring this season. They're going to need a new starting goalie next year. A bit tight in Pittsburgh, but they are, I don't know if they're going all in, but they're definitely gearing up. I'd say that they're gearing up. That's a good way to put it. I wouldn't say this is the look of a team that's all in. I think that team would really would have gone out earlier. They wouldn't have just started making moves the last little bit. They would have been trading firsts way beforehand. So the Flyers, yeah, JVR making $7 million. James Van Riemsdyk, he's fallen off in the last little bit. Hopefully Jeff LTIR retires. LTI retires. That's good. Van Riemsdyk. Yeah, I like Jeff Carter, but I think he did very well in the Penguins when he first came. I think this was a tough year, though. That third line of, was it Bluger, Carter, and Kapanen? Tough times. JVR, I remember having him in fantasy a few years ago. I think his first year back in Philly, I remember having him 27 goals. I was over the moon with that. I know, no, sorry. It was 2 years ago I was over the moon with him. 43 points in 56 games. Out of nowhere, he went on a pace of 63 points out of nowhere, which would have been a career high 2 years ago. But then since then, 38 points, 24 goals, mind you, in 82 games. And then this season, 23 in 41. Oh, McGinn, that's what it was. McGinn, Carter, Kapanen, worst line in hockey, unfortunately. Jeff LTI retires. I'm going to use that line. I hope that you LTI retire. LTI retire. So this season, sorry. Actually, he's played 41 games, so just double it. That's 46 points that he's projected to score this season, which would actually be technically his second best season as a Flyer in an 82-game season, though, because you can't, unfortunately, the 2020-2021 season was cut short. But technically, it would be on pace if he were to play a full 82 games with the Flyers for his second best season as a Flyer, since these other point totals came always in 60 games. So that would be something. Kelly, do you see data? Did you see yesterday's Picard episode? No, I did not. I'm looking to actually be watching it tonight. I just watched. Oh, Kelly, I got to talk to you, my friend. I just watched. Excuse me for the Star Trek fanboying here for a second. I just watched a great episode of Voyager yesterday. I'm in season 3. I looked on IMDb. It's only rated a 7 on 10, but I loved it. It was the episode where Captain Janeway is stuck in a time loop where she always dies and then comes back into a pod with Chakotay, and then she has to go through it again. Then eventually the time loop stops, and then she actually does die, and then the crew has to go on without her. It's such a good episode. And then New Drive to Survive season is out as well. Yeah, so I have a lot to do in this next week of March break. I have a lot to do. Recording, Drive to Survive, Star Trek Picard, Star Trek Voyager. I got to finish season 3. I know the season finale is called Scorpion, I think, and that has a really super high rating on IMDb. So finally, the Nemestikov and San Jose deal trade is fully announced. So always good to talk Star Trek. Next stream or next discussion that we have, Kelly, maybe over in the Discord server, we'll be able to talk on about Picard. What? You're gonna love it if you're a DS9 fan. Kelly, you're killing me. Oh, I love DS9 almost more than Next Gen in some ways. Oh my goodness. I'd almost close the stream and sprint to right now. All right, JF Berube, Evan Fitzpatrick, and Derek Pouliot all clearing waivers today as well. That's a piece of information for us. Let's head back over here now that the Sharks Nemestikov trade is officially official. Nemestikov, one of the only 2 players in league history to be traded at the deadline 4 times. That's true, eh? Vlad Nemestikov, let me guess. Hold on, Tic Tac. Is the other player Chris Versteeg? And my second guess would be, is it Michael Sillinger? That's my guess. That's what I'm going to say. And it was always for a 4th. Was that always Nemestikov's value? Was it always for a 4th round pick? Let's pull this up here. Now we're having some fun in the chat. Let's get it in the Nemestikov. Let me see this. Nemestikov. Mr. Trade Deadline. Him, the Mount Rushmore of the trade deadline. Nemestikov, Versteeg, Sillinger, and who's someone else that moves a lot? Matt Nieto between San Jose and Colorado. I don't know. So Tampa drafting him in 2011. They draft him. Tampa Bay does. They trade him to New York. New York trades him to Ottawa, Ottawa to Colorado, signed by Detroit, traded to Dallas, signed by Tampa, traded to San Jose, and now traded to Winnipeg. So there you go. The journey continues for Vladislav Nemesnikov. So it was for Nick Ebert and a fourth in 2019, for a fourth in 2020, for a fourth in March of 2022, and once again for a fourth now in 20. That's crazy. Always for a fourth. Got to head back to work for a bit. Looking forward to see what you think shortly. Absolutely, Kelly. We'll talk soon. Sillinger, great job. Hey, I'll take it. I'll take that. Thank you, Tic Tac. Thanks for the love on that one. So, yeah, Nemesnikov, Mr. Fourth-round pick, Mr. Trade Deadline, having a solid enough career so far as a journeyman around the league, it's sounding like. He, funnily enough, with all these deadline moves, he's only made the postseason like twice since, I won't count the years that he was with Tampa, since that was before he had been traded. If I'm just looking at the years where he was traded to a team at the deadline or whatever for a fourth, traded to Ottawa, doesn't make the postseason. Goes to Colorado, makes the postseason. Goes to Detroit, no postseason. Traded to Dallas, makes the postseason. Signs in Tampa, gets traded before he can make the postseason, and now he's in... what's going on over here? What's this noise? These advertisements. Now he goes over to the Jets, where he'll likely make the postseason. Well, I'm very certain he'll make the postseason once again. So Nemesnikov, let's go ahead and look at the Winnipeg Jets now. The Jets, they acquire Nemesnikov, which is $1.25 million. They get Nito Niederreiter at $4 million, and that now leaves them with $768,000 in projected cap space. They have no seconds this year or next year, but they still have their first and third the next couple of years, plus their fourth in 2024. So you would think more could happen. I'm not sure if the Jets are still looking to make more happen, but you would think it's possible. Blake Wheeler eats up a lot of cap, unfortunately. Pierre-Luc Dubois is going to cost a little bit. You have a lot of expiring deals at the bottom right here. So, the Jets are a team that will still be good moving forward, but will look very different next season. You have Cole Perfetti as well in your injured reserve. Connor Hellebuyck's going to need a new contract after next season. And Ryan, buddy. Ryan says, love the content with the $10 donation. Thank you very much, my friend. Hey, I'm taking a half day off work. You guys got to pay my salary, right? Just kidding. Always free entertainment. All I ask is for your comments and for your interaction, and that is more than enough. But Ryan, it is so very appreciated, and it means a lot. Thank you for leaving that, as it helps to get my bottle of water in front of me, right? That's a sip just for you, buddy. Thank you for the love. Let's go back over here as we'll continue breaking it down with 52 minutes to go until the trade deadline. So the Jets can definitely, I would think they could still do more. Let's go back over to Winnipeg. Ryan, legend. And Ryan, I forget if you're in the Discord server, but if you are, please let me know. That means you got a special role in the Discord server for the donation. So you would think that you could move some players around at these league minimum kind of guys to make something else happen with that extra money that you still have of the 700 whatever thousand. 700, how much was it? 68? You would think that something else could happen, but I also think that this is likely the end of the day for the Jets. I think they've addressed what they need. They need some defense in their middle six and bottom six. Niederreiter and Nemesnikov do that. So I like this deal for the Winnipeg Jets. Nemesnikov is a good piece for a team moving in the postseason. Hold on, the trade breakers are talking over on TSN.
Future JT Miller with the Vancouver Canucks. As we reported earlier today,
what's your username, Ryan, if you don't already have a rule, if you haven't already donated before?
The Penguins with interest in JT Miller, draft picks would have gone the other way. It wasn't a fit at the time for the Vancouver Canucks because with Horvat gone and Besser potentially going, well, now what do you do at center ice, right? I don't know how significant the interaction was today between Pittsburgh and Vancouver. I used the word push, and I was told not so sure it's a push, more of a back and forth. But they did re-engage to some degree.
Yes, you are, Ryan. You are.
Vancouver and Pittsburgh.
So just adding into your legendary status. Thank you, buddy.
Feels like a long shot here. You're going to be training in Vancouver again now.
What else is new? What's going on with Seattle? Speaking of the West Coast.
Yeah.
Pierre's going to talk about Seattle here?
On the bubble, the last playoff spot. They're holding it right now, but
Yeah, and I don't think Ron Francis wants to pay high prices for Reynolds, but we do believe that he has talked to both Anaheim about John Klingberg.
Klingberg to Seattle, perhaps. They're talking about it.
Philadelphia about James
And JVR, as we
so
discussed earlier.
Conversations, whether or not it ends up in a deal for either player, we'll find out here in the next hour.
Dave Axtell, head coach, has history of Ben Reeves-Dyke from their days in Philadelphia together. CJ, I was in Calgary last night. The Flames are treading water, if you want to call it that, sinking slowly. What goes on with the Flames?
Brock and Scooby-Doo. We're going to make it happen.
Notably quiet, I would say.
Notably quiet in Calgary, says Chris Johnston.
Because what you mentioned, Atina hasn't done a lot in the last few weeks, has been waiting for direction. We think might be willing to sell. Well, it doesn't sound, at least at this point in time, like too much is going on.
And I've got absolutely nothing because, generally speaking, 2 to 3 o'clock is my nap time.
Bobby Margs.
I come in today, it's a little bit like daycare. I think they're going to put mats on the floor.
We have a hammock coming for Bob.
Lester,
We need more cowbell.
Lester McLean came in. I knew you'd be napping. This was your cowbell from the song. So
Yeah.
Put that in the musical hall of fame.
These guys have a lot of fun on TSN.
So here's one
You give
note
me
for
some money.
you. Here's a note on the trade deadline that might not have come up. The trade deadline is 40 days before the end of the regular season. And so that means for the first time ever this year, it's on a Friday, which shouldn't really matter, except when a team acquires a player who's a citizen of another country. So a Canadian team trades for an American player or a European player. That player needs a visa to work in the country. It takes 24 to 36 hours to process it.
Sorry, eh?
Well, here's the problem. They're not open on the weekend.
Oh, wow. That's a great point.
Say a Canadian team acquires a European player in the next hour. That guy probably won't be able to play for them until Tuesday or Wednesday at the earliest.
Wow.
And Yarby was traded a couple of days ago, but he doesn't get his work visa on Monday.
Jesse Pugliarvi is still in Canada.
Yeah.
Curtis Lazar might have the same problem going from Vancouver to New Jersey because for U.S. immigration, it's a much more complicated process. In fact, in most cases, you have to pick up the visa yourself at a U.S. consulate. So the weekend is going to play a large role when we'll see some of these traded players who are crossing the border take part in the game. Okay?
Wow. That's a great point. So if a Canadian team, for example, were to acquire an American or a European player, they need to get a visa to be able to play there, to work there, right? And if everything's shut down on the weekend, well, you're not going to be playing until Tuesday or Wednesday at the earliest because it takes at least 24 hours once they're open, once they're working. So it's going to be interesting to see, does that deter some teams? I don't know, but there are still 20 games to go. I don't know if it'll be the end of the world. Jesse Pugliarvi still in Canada, still waiting for his ability to go work in the USA. So that's interesting as well. So also, speaking of the word interesting, I'm using it a lot, but the Seattle Kraken, once atop the Pacific Division and in the top 3 of the NHL for a good while, now find themselves in a wild card spot. I don't think that they're on a downward spiral and it's time to start thinking about moving out pieces. I think they should be adding. A team like Calgary should have been adding, but I think it's too late right now. The sentiment in Calgary is just it's too late. That's what I'm getting from the insiders. Anyone can technically still make it with 20 games to go, but I don't think Calgary's on that trajectory to do so. 3-4-3 in their last 10. I don't see it. Seattle, though, they are going to make the postseason, in my opinion. But do they want to do it in a wildcard spot? I think they'd want to get back into those Pacific spots, and they're going to have to try and bump Edmonton or LA out to do so. And they do have 2 games in hand over them, so it's definitely possible. But adding John Klingberg and or JVR would be a huge morale boost, I think, as well to the team. To say, hey, we're an expansion team in our second season. The management believes in us. Let's go. So I think that the wild card in the West is pretty much wrapped up. I think it'll be Seattle and Winnipeg making the postseason. I don't know what the combination will be, but these 8 teams will be the postseason in the sorry, it's getting blocked by my screen. I didn't realize that. These 8 teams that we saw from Dallas, Minnesota, Colorado, Vegas, LA, Edmonton, Seattle, Winnipeg, Calgary. I would think that those are the 3 teams that make it, the 8 teams that make it from the Western Conference. So Seattle, they might want to do something to try and get back into a divisional spot. Meanwhile, over in the Eastern Conference, I think there's still a lot to fight for in the wild card, as again, in my opinion, I think Islanders and Penguins take it, especially that Pittsburgh is now loading up a bit more. I think that at the very least gets them into the postseason. But Buffalo's still pushing. Florida's still pushing. Unfortunately, though, they just had a couple of tough losses. The Panthers did. The Sabres are 5-5 in their last 10. Same record as the Penguins. Another couple extra wins would have put them in a very different conversation here. So that's something to keep a note of. Oh, Minnesota is trading Jordan Greenway to the Buffalo Sabres. Speaking of the Buffalo Sabres, breaking news here as we get another trade. Thankfully, this is one of our first trades live that we get. I'm sure they'll be going live here on TSN in a second, as the Sabres have acquired Jordan Greenway from the Minnesota Wild. Andy Strickland says that Winnipeg is still trying to acquire a D-man, but Jordan Greenway, a player who has had a big fall from grace, unfortunately, has not been able to really put it together in Minnesota, will be going to the Buffalo Sabres to play with the big physical game that they have over there, and he's going to be trying to help the team push for the postseason in Buffalo. So as it's about to be broken on the TV, we can go ahead and start talking about it here. Jordan Greenway, a player that many people thought would likely be moving, maybe Matt Dumba, maybe other pieces in Minnesota, but Jordan Greenway off to the Minnesota Wild. Let's take a look at him here. Cap hit of $2.1 million for this season. He's still under contract. They're still talking over on TSN. They have no clue. 2 goals and 7 points in 45 games. Huge letdown from Jordan Greenway this season, I do have to say. This year, he's on a pace for 13 points, when previously he was always in the 20s, 30s, on pace for 13 points and for like not even 5 goals. Yeah, really rough numbers from Jordan Greenway this season. 50th overall pick, a second-round selection back in the 2015 draft. But now he will now find himself on the Buffalo Sabres with term. Trade breakers?
He gets traded, obviously, from the Minnesota Wild to the Buffalo Sabres, and it's an interesting pickup by Kevin Adams and the Buffalo Sabres. We're just working on the details here of the return. Because the indication from the Buffalo Sabres was that they were going to kind of fish in the depth pool a little bit. And I'm not sure that's fair to Jordan Greenway. I mean, he hasn't had the year that he was hoping. He's got, 7 points in 45 games. Big forward, 6'6", 230 pounds, 2 more years at
6'6".
So,
big boy.
It's a sneaky good ad for the Buffalo Sabres.
Sneaky good ad. I agree with that.
I guess we have to figure out exactly what's going back the other way.
And you can't be more on the bubble for the playoffs than the Buffalo Sabres are.
Very on the bubble.
They're 2 points behind the Islanders, but by points percentage, they actually hold down the final playoff spot because they've got 4 games in hand on the Islanders. Okay?
All right, thanks. So let's go to, as I said, first I was going to talk about Greenway earlier. You had him in Minnesota for how long? 2 years?
2 years, and I think this is a really good get for Buffalo.
He's 26 years of age. He's still signed for next season at $3 million.
And I think he'll love going there. But I mean, he hasn't had the year offensively that.
Yeah, you're right, Scooby-Doo.
And I think last year.
But you would think that it's more of a depth piece because they don't have much money to make much more happen. It'd be tough for them to get a Klingberg or an Edmondson.
For him, he's still, a young man. He's not 31 or anything like that. And I think he can still grow as a hockey player.
2 more years at $3 million for Greenway.
He competes. He can kill penalties. And I think this is a good get for Buffalo.
Oh, before you go, I was going to say, just the drop-off you talked about last year, 10 goals, 17 assists in 62 games, only 2 goals this year, and 7 points.
Seeing him at the World Juniors in Montreal, we all said, this guy's going to be a star. We had a little game. It was like, how's this guy not in the NHL? He might just need a fresh start. You see some professionals, the second team they get.
Might just need a fresh start.
Maybe he just needs to reassess the way he approaches the game. Everything he does at the NHL level, and he'll start having success.
He's only 26 years of age as well, so he's still young. When you talk about that maturing into his game.
Yeah, well said. So Jordan Greenway, 2 more years at $3 million after this one. Jack is going to be interested in the return as a Wild fan for sure. Liked Greenway. He was unfortunately having a very bad season for a lot of reasons. A lot of reasons, as in it wasn't as if he was playing on the 4th line. It was mostly his play. He was still playing 13, 18 of ice time per night, but as he got worse, his ice time went down. But he's used to getting 14, 15 minutes of ice time per night and able to put up 20, 30 plus points in a year. In 2020, 2021, where he had 32 and 56, that was a pace of 47 points that season. So this year, to have 7 points in 45 games over an 82-game season, it averages out to 31 points in a year. You would think that in Buffalo, it will be a very different scene for him. Buffalo and Minnesota have 2 deep prospect pools. I think this will be an interesting deal if it involves any of them. Yeah, I agree. I don't think this is just a pick going back. I think both teams are strong enough and understand the value of Greenway to say it's not just here's a second or a third or fourth or whatever it is. Let's refresh here on Twitter and see what the return seems to be. Oscar Sundqvist heading to the Minnesota Wild as well, it sounds like. That'll be a separate deal from the Detroit Red Wings. So, and Detroit is even joining Seattle in a push for JVR. What? If Detroit gets JVR, what? That would be ridiculous. Why? Why would you get an expiring JVR? That would make no sense. No sense. Why are you even looking into that? That's crazy, Detroit. What are you doing? Jordan Greenway. Okay, let's go ahead and look at the J Fresh card. Jordan Greenway acquired by Buffalo. And we'll get, hey, come on. Let's get the Oscar Sundqvist news after this. Maybe that changes things for JVR. I don't think they move Oscar Sundqvist out. I don't know. Jake Wallman, now the only piece that they have left from the Nicoletti trade. Cap Friendly saying Winnipeg have $3.3 million cap space. Could be wrong, but if, for example, Montreal trade Edmondson, they could retain. Yeah, Winnipeg have that much cap space? When we last looked, I thought they had like $750,000. We'll look at Jordan Greenway in just a second. Let's just pull up Winnipeg. It's a second-round pick. Capital sign Nicolas Aubé-Kubel to an extension. And part of the package is a second-round pick going back to Minnesota, says Frank Cervalli. So part of the package, I forgot to put Frank Cervalli in my thumbnail here. But part of the package, so that means there's more to come, but a second-round pick going. You would think that both teams are swapping pieces. I don't think it's Minnesota just buying. Oh, here we go. Minnesota get a 2023 second-round pick and a 2024 fifth-round pick for Greenway. No salary retained. So it might just be 2 picks right there, a second and a fifth, according to Michael Russo. That could very well be it. The Jets have $768,000 of projected cap space. That's it. Current cap space. Okay. Current cap space. Yes. Thank you, Rock and Scooby-Doo. My apologies. Current cap space. Yes. All right, back over here. So Jordan Greenway, defense first physical winger who takes a lot of penalties and struggles to put the puck in the net, has been part of some effective lines in the past. As we see right here, over the last few seasons, his offense was much higher and took a dip. His defense has gone way up, which is great, but his overall wins above replacement percentile hasn't changed too much. 81st percentile of even strength defense over the last 3 years, weighted average data, which is very nice. But offense 25, okay. Goals, penalties, finishing, all extremely low. Fourth liner in terms of ice time, I guess he gets like 13 a night. 2 more seasons at $3 million. The Wild have a player that was good, that had things just not going his way for him, and they recoup a second and a fifth. I like that value for Minnesota. I do like that value. Full details there from, let's go ahead and give Michael Russo a follow. Anyone who breaks news gets a follow from me. So there's Minnesota's return, a second and a fifth without really hurting themselves this season in terms of what they were getting. It could hurt down the road if Greenway turns into a great piece on Buffalo, but the reality is it doesn't seem to be happening in Minnesota. So a second and a fifth. There you go. Aubé-Kubel extending in Washington. Any more new information here? Aubé-Kubel. There we go. All right. So then we also see that Oscar Sundqvist is headed to the it's Vegas' second, by the way. Vegas' second from the Eichel trade goes from Buffalo to Minnesota. That's interesting. Biggest trades of the day. Let's see. Making cap space for Besser, maybe, says Sam. Good point. Perhaps. Could be something of creating some cap space on top of recouping value. Is it just that they want value, or is it that they want cap space? Could be a bit of both, right? Biggest deals of the day. Well, we have Nick Bonino. We have Nemesnikov. Let's go back to this over here. We have Curtis Lazar. We have Jakub Vrana. That's pretty much it for the day. We have Oscar Sundqvist going down as well. The cap space also means a lot for the Wild with the penalty buyouts that they're going to have to deal with Parise and Suter coming up. So the Minnesota Wild gets some more cap space, which is nice. He's not $3 million is not off the books just yet, but if we can add $3 million, that now gives them $4.686 million to play with. Current cap space goes up to $10.428 million. They could broker deals. They could still broker one more deal, correct? Yeah, they could still broker one more deal. Next season, they have the buyout, $14.743 million total of buyout money that they have to pay next season. So there's $3 million off the books next year as well, which is good. Lazard trade for more space for Vancouver to retain Besser's contract, and Minnesota moving guys for Besser with retention. Hey, maybe that works out. I could see Besser to Minnesota. That's always been the biggest rumor. Besser to Pittsburgh was a rumor at one point, but it sounds like Besser to Minnesota is still the most likeliest of deals if Besser is to move. As we're getting down to the wire now with just about 35 minutes to go until the trade deadline, Oscar Sundqvist always headed to the Wild. Yeah, we said that. Add that to the money of the 10 point whatever million. So Oscar Sundqvist, let's pull up his stats here for his salary cap. So of that 10 point whatever million, Sundqvist, of that 10.5 million, also keep in mind the money that Oscar Sundqvist will cost, which is 2.75 on an expiring deal, assuming that there is no retention there. So that means there's still a lot of money, but it was 10.6? 10.6 minus 2.75. That's still, come on, 10.6, mash that calculator. That leaves him with 7.85. Lots of small interesting moves. I have a feeling we're getting a big blockbuster right at the deadline. I could see it, Owen. Sam Smith, Vancouver turned down Pittsburgh's offer for JT Miller just because it was for draft picks. I hate this owner. He's a control freak over our management. Hey, Slim. Welcome aboard. So Oscar Sundqvist, he's in the final year of a 4-year contract they signed with St. Louis, and he's been effective, I think, on the Red Wings. I wouldn't say this is last year was a bit more promising as he had 8 points in 18 games, which was a pace of 36 points. Okay, actually this year, now that I look at it a bit more closely, this year he's on a pace of 33 points. So last year, technically a bit better in terms of his pace over an 82-game season. But this year, still very good. 21 points in 52 games so far this season. I like it. Dryden Hunt looking to go to Calgary, according to sources. Really? Dryden Hunt looks to be on the move again, this time to Calgary. Dryden Hunt, you just got moved. So Dryden Hunt also moving on here. He had just been moved, right? In Dryden Hunt. Wasn't he just moved like a few days ago? Dryden Hunt, 27-year-old who was... Oh, no, am I thinking of somebody else? I am thinking it was that one of those defensemen. He was moved from Colorado to Toronto for Dennis Malgin. Down in the AHL, 9 points in 15 games, 1 goal in 9 games this season. Who am I thinking of? How do you figure out the pace? I've been wondering that forever. Here's how you do it. Let's take Jordan Greenway, for example. Here's an example for you, Ryan. Here's me mashing. Let me show you how to mash that calculator. So this season, he's on pace. He scored 7 points in 45 games. 82 divided by 45 gives me 1.8222222222. I multiply that by 7, and that gives me 12.755, rounded up to 12.76, which rounds up to 13 points. Over an 82-game season, he would be on pace for a 13-point total on the Wild so far this year. 13 points in 82 games would be his 82-game pace. Jack likes the Sundqvist deal. It makes sense. We moved out Greenway because we added Marcus Johansson and Gustav Nyquist. Yeah, that also makes sense. So Oscar Sundqvist, I like it for the Minnesota Wild. It makes sense with Detroit selling right now. Just get everybody out of here, I suppose. But if they go out and get JVR, if they turn the picks that they got from Bertuzzi and Hronek, some of those picks into JVR, I would disavow Stevie Y. I'd have to disavow him. No problem, Ryan. Or you could even do 7 divided by 45 times 82. That works too. Yeah, that works as well. That also works. And even it shows you on Elite Prospects. And if you want to look over the 82-game career average, it shows you on Hockey Reference as well. But yeah, I would disavow Stevie Y. I love Stevie Y. I think he's a great general manager. I know Slim thinks he's overrated, but I think I would have to disavow him if he were to sell everybody and then acquire JVR. So Oscar Sundqvist will move out, which adds cap space to Detroit. 8.16 plus 2.75. That gives them 10.91 million to hopefully broker some more deals or make something bigger happen. They've only retained... Oh, they've already retained on 3 players. They can't retain anymore. No, they cannot retain anymore. They just have to try and use that money to acquire somebody else. Hopefully not JVR. He's a hockey player who is respected for anything he does is genius. I think Owen, at the same time, I think he also built himself a solid enough reputation with the Lightning. I don't think any former player, especially those who are legends, are necessarily called genius and all that stuff. I remember for a time Joe Sakic wasn't respected in the same way. But I think the deals that he did make in Tampa and some of the deals in Detroit got him that status. But if he were to get... I'm not going to judge him yet. If he gets JVR, I'm not going to be happy. So it's going to be a pick going to Detroit from the Wild for Oscar Sundqvist. Let's... what kind of picks do the Wild have to play with again? I would think they probably moved a 4th in 2023 or 2024 for Sundqvist. I would think that it's a 4th. They already don't have their 3rds this or next season, and they wouldn't move a 1st or a 2nd. So I would think it's a 4th this year or next year in exchange for Oscar Sundqvist. Who was I talking about? So Dryden Hunt is on his way to Calgary, but who was I thinking of? Someone got traded earlier this week. Load more. Someone got traded earlier this week with a similar name, right? Wasn't Henry Thrun? Was it Henry Thrun? Is that who I was thinking of? But Henry Thrun is a younger player, of course. Hunter Drew. That's who I was thinking of. Hunter Drew was who I was thinking of. Okay. So Dryden Hunt, separate from Hunter Drew, on his way to the Calgary Flames. So, hey, there you go, Calgary. You did something. You did something. Yikes. That's a yikes in my opinion. Also, Chase Prisky going to the Ducks in exchange for Austin Strand. It's going to Buffalo there. There's a little minor league deal happening. Well, maybe not minor league, but a very minor deal happening right there. Yes, Dmitry Kulikov to the Pittsburgh Penguins. It's not on the trade list yet because the teams haven't announced it. But yeah, Dmitry Kulikov for a 3rd-round pick going to the Pittsburgh Penguins. I like it. I like that move a lot for the Penguins. Let's see here. Dryden Hunt acquired by the Flames is a defensive 4th-line winger. Is that what they needed? I don't know. So we see, come on, let's see him. We see right here, 23rd percentile of projected wins above replacement the last 3 years. This year, not too shabby, but a very limited 4th-line role. 80th percentile of even strength defense. Take that with a grain of salt. But it's come on, for Calgary to say that's their move. If I'm a Flames fan, I am I at the level of disgust just yet? Not sure if disgust is the word, but I would really be saying there better be another move in store. Until 4 o'clock, a lot of teams will probably enter because they need to be verified by NHL official, etc. Exactly. Better than Boston with the addition. That's it. Calgary, now the favorites to win the Cup this year. 30 minutes left until the deadline. We're there. This is normally the time where GMs stop procrastinating and start moving guys. Yeah, Sabres did make that announcement. Yeah. There's that little depth move of Strand and Prisky. Yes. JVR, Klingberg, etc. still haven't been moved. Guaranteed. There's a lot of players who you think, like Joel Edmondson, who knows if it happens. Guaranteed JVR is moving by within the next 27 minutes, excuse me. And guaranteed John Klingberg is moving within the next 27 minutes. More guaranteed in terms of JVR, but I would say it's a guarantee that both these guys have to be moving. Cornelius, welcome to the stream as well. Odd to see not much from the Avs or Canes, agreed. Does Justin Hall get moved? I would think so, with all the defensemen in Toronto's system. I would think that that's also something that's going to be happening. But at this point, we do not know. Hey, Kelly, if you're still in the stream, my brother just messaged me. Are we going to be watching Star Trek Picard tonight? We'll be watching. So as we move into the final few minutes, over the final 26 minutes, we're always going to be refreshing those tweets. Yeah, Chase Prisky. Are there any bubble/playoff teams that haven't done anything to bolster? Well, Calgary is one of those right here. Buffalo did a little something to bolster. Florida hasn't really done anything. Washington is selling, so that's about it. Over in the West, we see that Seattle hasn't done anything. Calgary, although they did something, I'm going to call it that they did nothing. And that's about it. I would say those are the bubble teams that haven't done anything. Funny enough, from Amanda Stein. Yeah, Devils reporter, but actually Amanda Stein used to be on TSN 690 in Montreal. Yeah, Amanda Stein, now working for the Devils, says that Lazar and Howle's wives are BFFs and were hanging out when the news came out. No way. Cornelius, what's up? Data just paid close to a band at the garage, so I'm ready to sit back and listen. Enjoy, buddy, but stay healthy. Okay, I encourage health at all times. I encourage keeping those lungs healthy. Okay. Jacob, I always get this wrong if it's Jakob Pedersen or Jacob Peterson, but the Sharks have acquired him from the Dallas Stars in exchange for Scott Reedy. There's a move coming out today. And by the way, Dryden Hunt going to Calgary for Radim Zohorna, who is that Zohorna had come to Calgary from Pittsburgh. I forget what the deal was, but they acquired him from the Penguins. I think was it just off waivers? I think that's it. Owen, so far you've been the best live stream, always talking a hit trade deadline and always talking a hit trade deadline and not off topic. Hey, thanks, buddy. Thanks a lot, Owen. I appreciate that. I try to keep it as much as possible. And there's a lot of others going, Sportsnet, Sarah Valley, Daily Faceoff, all that good stuff. But we're having a good time here where we can discuss all these things together, not just have to listen to me the whole time. We also get our thoughts going down here in the chat. Franchise mode legend, Scott Reedy, on his way. Yeah. That'll be a swap with Pedersen over on the Dallas Stars. So Scott Reedy making his way over to Dallas. Trading Greenway hurts, but it makes sense. Yeah, let me get off Twitter here for a second. Let me just pull up your comments since we're still not much is happening at the moment. Trading away Greenway hurts, says Jack, as the resident Wild fan. Always talking about trade deadline. My typing is horrendous. Hey, don't worry. I'm trying to read and do things at the same time over here as well. Thanks. Appreciate that, Owen. Franchise mode legend. Tic-tac. So we're down to 22 and a half minutes until the trade deadline. Things are starting to heat up a little bit here. Yeah, that's why we don't just look at points. We don't just look at points. But Sundqvist, you got to admit, as a bottom guy, if you can call him a 0.5 point per game guy in a bottom role, I think that's a fair thing to look at. I think you can evaluate you will not evaluate his game through the points, but you can say, don't tell me JVR is going to Detroit. No, don't tell me Dabrowski. Do not tell me that. 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 You're killing me! Stevie, why? You're killing me! Why? I disavow you. With the stream as my witness, I disavow you. I disavow you. I disavow you, Stevie Y. This is the move you make. I disavow you, Stevie. I am so sorry. I disavow you. Are you serious? What are you doing, Stevie? I am so sorry. I disavow you. JVR. To a team that has sold. They buy one of the biggest piece, that team that's not even going to make the playoffs or even push for the playoffs. They go ahead and get the best player. Not only do they get the best player available right now, they must have paid a boatload because playoff contenders were also wanting JVR. They must have paid so much. That is ridiculous. That is ridiculous. And Cornelius, thanks for the kind words. Glad you're a healthy streamer. Only thing that helps me is that I don't rip darts. I'm just waiting for a deal no one expects right now. Okay, stay healthy, buddy. All the best. My job, I say that because my job involves a lot of health-related aspects. Curious to see what happens with Alex Goligoski in the next 20 minutes as well, says Michael Russo. We'll look at JVR's stats in a moment. That is ridiculous. Detroit, Philly finalizing JVR trade. What are you doing, Stevie? Stevie, you're killing me. A veteran net front winger. What are you going to do with this? Before we even look at it, what are you going to do with this, Detroit? What are you going to do with this? Unless there's some giga-brain plan going on, I've given Stevie a lot of leash here. The last couple days, I've given him a lot of leash. But now we're 20 minutes away from the deadline, and you've traded out all these pieces, and you've acquired JVR. If I hear for a first-round pick plus, I'm going to snap. I'm not even a Red Wings fan. I'm going to snap. You're not making the postseason. You're 7th in the wild card hunt. You got to be top 2. You're 7th. 1, 2, 3, 4 teams above you, and you don't hold games in hand. Are you serious? That's the move you make? Unless there's some sort of brokering. No, they can't be. They can't retain any more salary. No. It's just straight up bad. It's just straight up bad. JVR, yeah, great. Look at the nice percentiles, but you got to look at the stretch as well. If it's up and down, 62 is average, great. It's been straight downhill over the last 3 years. Come on. No, I can't admit anything yet, Slim. Not until 3 p.m. But there's almost no leash left for this guy. Almost no leash left. Trade to flip? I don't know. Bobby, I live in Philly. Here's JVR's stats. G, trash. A, trash. Points, trash. Thank you for the donation, buddy. Bobby, means a lot. If you're on in the Discord server, but if you are, please let me know. I'll give you the special role. The donation means a lot, buddy. Thank you for your generosity. Now, here at Cornelius, it makes sense. If they paid nothing, it makes sense. But there's no way that they paid nothing because they were fighting against Seattle, Vegas, Colorado. They definitely had to have paid a large enough price. And Ryan, I don't think it could be a trade to flip because why not just trade with Detroit straight up, with Philadelphia straight up if you want JVR? Detroit can't retain any salary anyways. So I don't know. People are just lighting up Stevie in the chat. Elzerman, Chokzerman, Common Elzerman, just lighting up Stevie in the chat here. I looked at this earlier, and the winner of the Mantha Verana trade was Dallas. Stevie Loserman. Boy, oh boy. Wow. Not only, but like if JVR was the big fish and Detroit got him, it would make no sense. He's the big fish, and he's not even that good. And Detroit get him. Why? Still hasn't been broken over on TSN just yet.
I remember seeing Bruce Boudreau and realizing like this guy was his hot shot,
yes.
Guy.
And that's a fair point, Cornelius. If the price did come down, it's a third. It still makes no sense, but at least it makes, at least it's manageable, digestible. More digestible still makes no sense if you can tell me it's a third-round pick, right? There's only team that can't trade with Philly straight up, and Stevie facilitated a trade between them before for Mark Streit. If it's Stevie Y gigabraining his way to trading JVR to the Penguins, then no problem. That's why I reserve my judgment until I disavow him. I told you that I disavow you, Stevie, but I will not fully call you like ludicrous until 3 o'clock. But we're getting close. We're getting close. If Stevie paid more than a first in prospects, then the entire city of Detroit is going to call for his head. You got to think there's something. You got to think. If you paid nothing, then who cares? Yeah, fair enough. You get him. He gives you a little bit of fun in the last 20 games. Maybe he stays on for next season as a veteran guy who's going to maybe cost you $3-4 million now. And you need to have someone in your top 9 after you move out Bertuzzi and Sundqvist and Verana. That would make perfect sense. If they get him for cheap and they re-sign him, then it makes more sense. I'll give you that. But if they just got him, they let him walk to free agency, they missed the postseason, they lose out on a first-round pick, then I would snap. That would be ridiculous. They're still even talking about it on TSN. Noodles, what are you talking about, Noodles? This guy's just talking for what? I played in Utica one night. I don't want to hear about your nights in Utica, Jamie McLennan. I want to hear about Stevie Y. Come on. Whoa. We can't put that on TV, Jamie. You guys got something? Yeah, 10 minutes later. They're all laughing.
You gotta go from I expose the gun at Utica. No, give us a breaking news.
Let's go Darren Drago with James and Reeves then.
Yeah, look, I mean, we're kind of moving the shells around here a little bit. It's very likely that James Van Riemsdyk is going to the Detroit Red Wings, and this is interesting because this is the Red Wings coming into the equation, I would say, relatively late. So what does that mean? I mean, the Detroit Red Wings have been sellers to this point as they're looking on the outside of the playoff picture. So could there be a longer-term fit for the Detroit Red Wings and JVR? But what's complicating it is the fact that the Detroit Red Wings are moving another piece, right? Now, could that be Sundqvist to the Minnesota Wild for the draft pick that we reported on earlier?
Yeah, that's funny, Cornelius.
A few things up in the air, but in the end, it will result in James Van Riemsdyk landing in Detroit.
Wow.
Okay, James, it's
I can't wait to have the biggest turnaround where I disavow Stevie, and 15 minutes later, I'll be screaming, I bow to you, Stevie. I bow to you. But we'll see. Is he gigabraining this? As Frank Cervalli reports, let's bring it over to Twitter. Let me just jump over to Twitter to show you Frank Cervalli reporting that the deal isn't done yet. Some other people are reporting the same thing. The deal's not done yet, but it involves the Red Wings moving out another piece. Who would the Wings be moving out? If they're already moving out Oscar Sundqvist, who else could they be moving out? Devils and Jesper Brattkamp continue to discuss an extension. Don't expect a deal today. No trade in place at this exact moment for JVR. JVR likely headed to Detroit. Detroit isn't done. The deal isn't done as the Red Wings are in the process of moving another player. So who could this be now? Let's consider this. Let's look at this rationally. If the Wings are getting JVR, maybe it's for nothing, and then they flip him with retention to the Penguins, says Intelligent Dice over the Discord server. But let's say the Red Wings get JVR, and there's something else going on. If there's another deal involved where they're moving out Patrick Kane Pius Suter, I could see that happening. Maybe moving out Jordan Osterley. I don't know. They don't really have that many expiring deals, but as we saw with Hronek, it doesn't take another. It doesn't take another deal happening. It doesn't take an expiring deal to make a deal happen. So it doesn't have to be a player with no term left. It just has to be one player. That's all we know right now. Chol JVR is not getting traded to the Red Wings, says Chris Johnston. He is not going. Stevie, I welcome you. I welcome you home, Stevie. I welcome you back to my good graces, Stevie. Stevie, thank you. Thank you. Pauline, I demand you to say arigato. No problem, Pauline. You're back in my good graces, Stevie. I welcome you back. I welcome you back to my good graces, Stevie. Thank you. Stevie Winterman? Come on, there we go. Stevie, I always knew you had it in you, buddy. I knew it couldn't be. I knew it. When those allegations came out, Stevie, he beats the JVR allegations. Stevie has beaten the JVR allegations. Congratulations. Well done. Let me tweet that as well. Things just changed fast on JVR right there. I wonder if another team swooped in and said, hey, I heard your deal is not done yet. Wow. No deal. There has to be a meme somewhere on beating the allegations of something, right? Stevie Chatterman. Stevie has beaten the JVR allegations. Well, Stevie Dubzerman. Stevie Dubzerman, what a guy. Stevie has beaten the JVR allegations. That's huge. That's huge because we were ready to snap. Wow. Okay, so what does that mean, though? The Red Wings are still likely moving out a player, but what does that mean for JVR? Yzerman had it, lost it. Good. Lose it. Lose it as much as you can. If maybe Stevie's upset right now saying, oh, I really want JVR, but he beat the JVR allegations and he just kept himself in a lot of people's good graces. Let's put Yzerman on a pedestal and worshiping it. And yes, Slim. Philly using this to jack up the price? Maybe. A little leak of information? Maybe. It's possible. Stevie has beaten the JVR allegations. Yeah. Randy, That's great stuff, Randy. Thank you. Let me just Randy, if you're in the stream, thank you for that. I gotta go ahead and just tweet that out myself, even just that one pick. Randy, that's amazing. Stevie, you beat the JVR allegation. Oh, I'm so proud of you, Stevie. Friedman has reported again, something has happened with JVR in Detroit, pulled back from the deal. And Detroit, pulled back from the deal, meaning that Philadelphia pulled back, or something happened and now Detroit pulled back. That's what I want to know. Because JVR, Detroit, Stevie, he beat the allegations. Stevie. Randy, that is good stuff. That is content. Let me go ahead and tweet that. Here, you can follow along now that I got it. I got that picture saved. Wow. Big news, beating the allegations. Congrats. Stevie Y, when the news broke that he beat the JVR allegations. And will indeed, let me make changes. And will indeed not be sentenced to what? 10 minutes remaining from the deadline. No, it's just 10 minutes remaining. Not sentenced to what? Choke status, to cone status. What can we call it? What will he not be sentenced to? While we wait on that, while my brain tries to work on that. Any other tweets coming through? And Detroit, then they pulled back from the deal. Interesting. 8.5 minutes to go, ladies and gentlemen. Let's see how this plays out for JVR. Yeah, they cannot retain salary anymore. The Panthers have received a lot of interest in Gudas today and been weighing their options. 12 minutes to go. Not be sentenced to infamy. How about that? 10 minutes remaining, and the only big name player on the block has had his deal canceled. Possible there will be a down at the deadline, though. Could be. Cornelius, awesome. Got to go shovel snow off my rink because there's supposed to be a whole bunch of snow coming. Pro tip, don't build an ODR without a roof or a snow blower. Now I can't enjoy the deadline stream. Come on, buddy. You can't wait another 10 minutes? Well, we'll be here for an hour after, Cornelius. Don't worry about that. Do not need to worry about that. We'll still be live for an hour after. Thanks for that, Randy. If he's not on the stream, I just want to make sure he gets his thanks. Thanks, Randy. I'm using this. 10 minutes left to submit trades, that is. Yeah, so the trades can still be coming in after the fact. I think we'll start listening. 7 minutes to go. I'm going to turn on the audio from the TV here. Oh, you are there. Great. Perfect. Thanks, Randy. I won't bother tweeting you then. That was great. That was a good laugh.
It's just too stacked. I do think Toronto gets by Tampa Bay in the first round, but it is such a daunting task in the East. In the West, I know everybody there has loved Colorado. I like Colorado too. Without Cale McCarr.
Oh, another 10 actually good point off to go up to Rams. Okay, makes sense, Cornelius. We'll still be out here.
So if McCarr isn't available in the playoffs, it's wide open in the West, and that's why if you look at what Edmonton brings last
the big news could still be a little bit after 3 o'clock, but things will continue to break. Bobby Stevens, welcome to the Discord server as well. Let me get you that role. The Discord server right away. If you're watching along here on YouTube, link in the description for the Discord server where we're always breaking news and discussing hockey and everything to do with the channel as well. Our NHL 23 franchise modes, to career simulations, and much, much more. We'd love to have you join us over on the server and here on the channel. Subscribe for much, much more of the real world of hockey analysis videos coming in the postseason as well. Now the trade deadline will be wrapping up. and we'll be having much more in terms of our NHL 23 content. Now that I can take a break a little bit from the real world content a little bit. Or Cornelius, yeah, listen while shoveling even, if that works. Boy, Pat says, I'm guessing nothing major breaks at this point, but considering all the moves this week, not disappointed at all. No, it's been a great deadline. Not disappointed. It's been a great deadline. The only issue is the deadline day. But even with that, I think a fair bit of moves have happened. Not, of course, what you're expecting, but I think there's still more to come with 5 minutes exactly right now. 5 minutes until the 3 p.m. Eastern deadline, where we're still waiting to see what happens with JVR and other pieces like John Klingberg. Tic Tac has been a great deadline week. The GMs have given us a lot to talk about. The amount of data casts, I have not been resting. I was falling asleep at work today. I was yawning like a ridiculous rate today. The amount of videos that I've been pumping out for data casts and all that, not just to say like, oh, look at me, I'm so special. I'm just saying the sheer amount of content. Troy Stetcher traded from Calgary to Calgary from Arizona. Calgary Masterclass. Calgary Masterclass. Not to Carolina, to, I believe, to Calgary there. Dabrowski-Ego. Yeah. There's a little deal happening. That face of thinking it over again when everyone laughs at JVR. Beat the JVR allegations. Looking like McCarthy will be back in the next couple of games, but Manson will miss some time related to injury. Maybe that works out for the Avs. Maybe another D-man, perhaps. Troy Stetcher. Yeah, thanks for the big graphic on that trade center. Zahora. There we go. So Troy Stetcher, there you go. Big move for the Calgary Flames. Amazing. Plan the parade and all that good stuff. Yeah, I noticed you there, Browski. I know that your handle on Twitter. So we have just 3.5 minutes to go now. Waiting to hear back. We'll keep refreshing on Twitter until we see the 3 p.m. bell go. But of course, we'll have even a lot of stuff after that. Login radius. Who's this? Thank you for the digital identity. Thank you. That's Calgary's move. Stetcher. Don't forget Braden Hunt. Don't forget Dryden Hunt. Don't forget him. He's okay, but he can't be your biggest move when you're out of the playoff spot. So Troy Stetcher and Dryden Hunt just essentially telling their fans like, hey, look, we're doing something. We're doing something. But not really anything in the end, in my opinion. So let's get Trade Center going. 3 minutes to go now. Numerically, most of the trades happened in the last hour. The last few years, 11 out of 17 trades in the last hour. Last year, 20 out of 32 in the last hour. The year before that, 11 out of 17, 19 out of 32, 14 out of 20. Lots of deals happened in the last hour. Absolutely.
You only have to stand in for one segment. We have 2 more hours to go after. Just reminding you that.
Duffy, poor guy. He's racked. Show 3 new tweets. I'm excited. Nothing just yet.
So nothing until then.
Nothing. And throw to Craig and MJ. Let's get out of this.
And if JVR does indeed get dealt, no comment.
I'll have a quick word.
Yeah, Owen will be streaming till 4 p.m. Eastern, another hour after this.
I'll make up something.
Agreeing to participate. If we take this, we'll come back later on, and if you guys want to make any adjustments to your top 5 picks, I don't know why you would, seeing what's happened so far, because nothing has happened to those teams. But
yeah, we'll see what the Canadians do in these last few minutes here, Cornelius. The phones must be on fire right now between NHL GMs, especially Edmonton, though. I agree.
Boston was already good. They made additions. Is it Toronto?
Yeah, odd stuff for Calgary, I got to say today.
You talk about changing a philosophy about the skill and possession. They just added some winners and some competitors, and that's something that they had.
Now, Edmondson and Anderson both have term, so they weren't forced to make a deal right now. Final 90 seconds of the deadline.
Yeah, it's a change in the identity, and so you have one look, and now it changes astronomically, really quite big. So for me, I would
good scoop shout out from Darren Drager.
It's not just about adding a piece, or it's
so
not just.
Troy Stetcher acquired. Final minute, by the way. Final minute. Troy Stetcher acquired by the Flames as a third pair 2-way D-man. Is he okay? Sure. Is that what Calgary needed? I don't know. I don't think that's going to be moving the needle very much. 45 seconds to go in the deadline. Here we are, ladies and gentlemen. It's been a couple hours of streaming, and it's coming into the final 40 seconds now. Come on, Billy G. Bring home Besser, says Jack. Last few seconds now. As we'll wait for the bell to go on TSN. Final 30 seconds now.
So you took all 4 teams that I was talking. I would think, okay, Toronto had the most, and they probably are going to be.
Brown traded? Who's this? Dabrowski saying Brown traded? Patrick Brown from Philadelphia to Ottawa. Breaking news. Bring him home. Let's go, says Jack. Final 10 seconds. Here we go. 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. Put down the phones. The deadline has sounded. There's the alarm over on TSN. No trade after this point. No trade can be sent in after this point. Any trade that we will hear about will have to have been submitted by this point. A few seconds ago, 3 p.m. Eastern. We'll be live until 4 o'clock. The deadline has hit, and we're waiting to see what happens from the next hour, as we will see what speed at which NHL Central Booking can start putting stuff through. And now we wait. Pencils down. Deadline's here. Let's see what moves trickle through. The deadline is now officially in effect. Well, the deadline has passed. In the past, we've seen details of multiple trades announced in the hours afterwards. So we'll end at 4 o'clock Eastern. There's been deals, I remember, at as late as 6, maybe even 7 p.m. Eastern. I'm not streaming till then to find out that Florida picked up a 7th D-man. But it is possible for some deals to come in the hours afterwards. Usually it's within the next hour, and then maybe there's like 1 or 2 that for some reason are trickling for a long time. But Patrick Brown to Ottawa for a 2023 6th round pick. Yeah, that's big there, Rock and Scooby-Doo. The fact that Edmondson and Monahan were injured definitely hurt the chance to be traded. So that would have been the first round pick that the Canadiens wanted to acquire if they could have gotten Sean Monahan healthy. But Edmondson and Anderson both still have term on their contracts. It's not the craziest thing or the worst thing in the world that they still hang on to them if they did not, in fact, trade Joel Edmondson especially. It's not the worst thing in the world for the Canadiens, but in such a deep draft, they would have wanted as much capital as you could. Rasmus Asplund to the Nashville Predators we're seeing here. Sorry, in the chat there from Dabrowski. Rasmus Asplund, legend in the Buffalo Sabres franchise going back on NHL 20. Rasmus Asplund being a pick for the... I would think that the Predators... I don't know. Why would they want him? Why did the Predators end up acquiring him? Come on, just click the new tweets. Come on. Maybe Monahan could be back next season. Yeah, he could be. I think if anyone would re-sign him, it would be the Canadiens. Come on, load those tweets. You can do it. Load those tweets. All day it works fine. And then now when we want to see at the deadline, there we go. So Sens acquire Patrick Brown, a 6th in 2023. The Hurricanes are done for the day. Rasmus Asplund going to the Nashville Predators. We'll wait to see what the details on that one is. But yeah, the Montreal Canadiens at this point, who are their expiring deals that they really want to get rid of? Maybe you would have thought Jonathan Drouin. Doubt it. But aside from that, that's about it. Joel Edmondson has term. Josh Anderson has term. No reason to push and force a deal that wasn't there when you have the leverage at this point. Canes at the same time have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11 picks in this draft. And they have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11 picks in the first 3 rounds in the next 3 years. So I like it. Confirm that JVR has not been traded and will not be traded. So I said guarantee that he'll get traded. But it sounds like he was and something happened. So whatever was possible did not get consummated with Detroit. That was odd. So it seems as though the deal that I guaranteed was in place, but JVR is not moving. Let's see what the trade breakers have to say.
Closest we have to drama today, unfortunately for James Van Riemsdyk, but he was not traded by the 3 p.m. deadline.
Nashville extending Dante Fabro. Wow.
With Detroit at the last minute there, but we're told he was not moved to any team.
Well, and I wouldn't go as far as to say there was an agreement between Detroit and Philadelphia, obviously, but they were really, really close. It sounded like a pick was going.
Klingberg, we still could wait to see on Klingberg.
But Yzerman and the Red Wings needed a bit more time to move a player. And then
I like the Dante Fabro extension. I think it makes a lot of sense.
And just quickly, Carolina Hurricanes did not make a trade today. Obviously, we're working the market, but looking for a forward, but to not make a trade.
All quiet on the Toronto Maple Leaf front.
And likewise, the Winnipeg Jets were working to get one under the wire, not able to do that, so it's closed in Winnipeg.
So that's all that didn't happen today, James.
Of the top 10 on the TSN trade bait board, only 3 got traded so far. Kulikov, Greenway, and Verana, and none of the top 4 were traded either. Of the top 5, only 1 was moved, and of the top 10, only 3 were moved on the TSN trade bait board. So we'll still wait to see what happens. I'm sure there's more. We see Asplund going to the Predators, and we see Patrick Brown going to the Senators. But aside from that, we're still waiting to hear if there will be any more deals coming our way. 1-year deal for Alex Chiasson with the Red Wings. Was he an unsigned player? Or was that 1 year, $2.5 million as well on Dante Fabro? Not sure why it's not showing me this. I'm only seeing it in the Discord server. Yeah, and then now show 10 new tweets. Yeah. So Dante Fabro not going to be moving out of Nashville. He'll extend for 1 more season. I'll be curious, does that keep him as an RFA? I believe it does. Anaheim have Klingberg and Shattenkirk as UFAs, so they didn't sell them. That would be bad asset management in my eyes. Agreed. Very much so, especially on Klingberg. Come on, you can do it. You can do it. Just show me that screen. You can do it. There we go. Everyone tweeting pencils down. I said phones down. So Rasmus Asplund acquired by the Predators as the bottom 6 two-way forward. Defensive metrics went a little crazy last year before regressing back this season. How it goes with bottom 6ers sometimes. So yeah, big dip there in the graph. Defense all the way up, then all the way back down. Letter V, up inverted letter V. Yeah, Patrick Brown from Philadelphia to Ottawa. There's the big move from the Flyers. They were too busy to move JVR. They had to move Patrick Brown for that 6th. A Canadian politician who has served as the 51st and current mayor of Brampton since 2018. Very good. Patrick, that's true. Yeah, that's true. He's a politician. I forgot. Not him, but someone else named Patrick Brown, obviously. Oh, boy. And it's a 7th rounder, eh? Only a 7th rounder. The Habs are done. Joel Edmondson was not moved. So there's your news on that. Stars were trying to land a defenseman. Not sure where that stands now as the deadline has passed. So JVR has not moved. Joel Edmondson has not moved. We're still waiting to hear back on John Klingberg. Rasmus Asplund gets moved for a 7th round pick. I guess Buffalo just said, we're done with you. Let's get anything out of you. And what's the word I was looking for? I lost my train of thoughts there. JVR, Kulikov moved at the top 5. I'm just thinking about Edmondson not moving. JVR not moving is a big surprise. I wonder if the Flyers are like furious about that because they definitely really wanted to have him move to the Red Wings, it sounded like. At least the Red Wings were interested enough. But Stevie Y, he beat the allegations. That would have been horrible. That's what I was looking for. Dante Fabro. 1 year, $2.5 million. He's a two-way D who showed some skill with the puck, but has had his minutes cut this season. I think he's a very good player. I think he can be even better than he's been. I think he can get back to where he was last season. I like Fabro a lot, and I think that the Predators did the right thing in keeping him on board. Now, the question is he an RFA next season? I'm not sure. I'll have to check that out. Oscar Sundquist acquired for a 4th. Yes, we saw that. Patrick Brown for a 6th. Capitals are done. Hurricanes are done. Canadians are at least not moving Edmondson. I'm not sure if they're done. Flyers are likely done after they move Brown and don't move JVR. What else does TSN have to say about this?
Since then, most of the major names, it happens before.
It almost seems like it gets right into the new year. Like you get into the new year, we always talk about American Thanksgiving, you know where your team is at. So you get into the new year, you either want to acquire somebody, you know where your team is, or you want to move on from a player.
Mm-hmm.
And if there's a taker and a seller, you make the transaction happen because everybody wants to move on.
This is the time of the day. It's ODog's favorite time of day because we get the GM's news conferences.
All of them.
We're not doing all 32 teams. We'll try to do the 7.
Besser and JT Miller remaining in Vancouver. No deal in place for the Canucks to move Brock Besser or JT Miller. So Jack and Minnesota Wild fans, sorry about that. Brock Besser and JT Miller both remaining with the Canucks through the deadline. No other information at this point. Tough news for Canucks fans who are maybe hoping to get some value back in a tough year. Oh, hold on. I hear a ping over here. Habs are done for the day. Joel Edmondson was not moved. Yeah, we saw that. What I'm sad is that Kent Hughes was able to add a goaltender prospect to his pool of prospects. Or wasn't able, you mean? Eric Portillo was traded to LA for a third-round pick. Montreal could have sent the same thing. Canucks have moved someone at the draft. No, I think they're over the cap for next year. Let me check that out in a second. Ooh, Zycar over in the Discord server. Great puts in. I would kill for one of those. Just scrolling through the Discord server quickly, seeing what everyone else had to say in the last 10 minutes or so. So JT to Pittsburgh at the draft, maybe that's something that gets considered. But at this point, no one moving. Let's check out Vancouver here in a second. Yeah. Let's look at Vancouver's cap-friendly page. Are they over the cap next season? Teams, do they need to make a move at the draft? Are they able to say, let's bide our time? I don't know. Will the market be the same at the draft as it has been at this deadline? Projected cap space, yeah, 0. So next season, let's start adding this up. You got Pettersson at 7.35. Let's start mashing the calculator. You got Besser at 6.65. Yeah, Habs done. Habs are done today. Miller at 8. Garland at 4.95. Another tough contract right now. Beauvillier at 4.15. Kuzmenko on his new extension of 5.5. But Colson at 0.925. You got Niels Aman at 0.88375. You need a contract for Kravtsov. Let's say you get him on the same deal. Let's say you get him again at 0.875. Dakota Joshua for 0.825. Jack Studnicka for 0.7625. And the same for Sheldon Dries at 0.7625. Oh, you can scroll down to the future view? That'll save me some time on the calculator. Is that it? Roster cap additional statistics? Oh, that's it. The future. It shows you right here. What am I doing? The total's right here. My apologies. Hold on. Dabrowski-Ego's telling me data in all caps. John Klingberg to the Minnesota Wild, says Dabrowski-Ego. Hold on. So John Klingberg, we may have a move over here. Do we have a tweet as I moved to the Vancouver Canucks and was smashing the buttons? Come on, Twitter. Don't do this to me now. Don't do this to me now. John Klingberg potentially moving to the Minnesota Wild. That'll be a big move for them as they try to use their cap space while they have it. And we're trying to get the total is at the bottom. I don't know why I didn't just look at the total. I was mashing the calculator for no reason, like an absolute fool. Come on. Come on. John Klingberg has been traded to Minnesota. The Ducks got in just under the wire. So better asset management from Pat Verbeek. And John Klingberg is off to Minnesota. Let's start evaluating this one. Very interesting move. Traded to the Minnesota Wild as they just got it in. Also, the LA Kings are trading Austin Wagner to the Blackhawks for future considerations. I wonder if that was needed for another deal to happen. But John Klingberg officially off to the Minnesota Wild. Just curious to see what the return will be. The Flames are getting Troy Stecher and Nick Ritchie in exchange for Connor McKay and Brett Ritchie. That was the full Troy Stecher deal there. John Klingberg to Minnesota. Let's check out the Wild. So the Canucks, will come back there in a second or later on. Please remind me if I end up forgetting. I wonder what their situation is right now. Maybe when we do the recap, we'll get to it. But the Minnesota Wild here. The Minnesota Wild acquired John Klingberg. And with the salary cap space that they had, I wonder if there's a broker involved. I'm curious because they can't retain. But they now have quite the expensive blue line with Spurgeon, Dumba, and Klingberg all making $6 to $7.5 million each. Then you have Middleton, Goligoski, who doesn't sound like he got moved, does have a full no movement clause though. John Merrill, Kalen Addison. So the defense gets a little scarier in Minnesota, absolutely. But I'll want to know what the value is. Let's see.
With the NHL by 3 p.m.
Yeah, they were just saying essentially that the trade has happened, but don't know what the return is yet, I don't think.
Last year and now a member of the Minnesota Wild. The Wild currently second in the
Central. Going after all the Swedes.
Dallas and in a pretty solid.
Goligoski staying with the Wild.
What do you think of the acquisition, NJ?
I'm glad they did it. you can't waste a guy like that. You invested this much to trade him.
Biggest deal of the day by far, yeah, for sure. John Klingberg, 8 goals, 16 points, 24 points on the year so far. While we wait to hear the return on him, let's go pull up some of his numbers.
Even though at least their defenseman is scoring, he gets scratched sometimes. So I think they Klingberg, same right shot.
just more experience, a guy that they can trust to play in all different situations, not just offensively.
And you know the coach for the Minnesota Wild, he's got an intense look to him, James. You like ever.
Yeah.
And hopefully that can help bring out some more competitiveness in Klingberg. Watching him in Dallas, he was always involved in the rush. He would always be dragging the puck across the blue line, making creative plays in the power play. Watching Anaheim this year and watching him on defense, it hasn't been the same player. There's been a drop-off, so hopefully...
Yeah, drop-off this season for Klingberg for sure.
A better team can help his game.
Yeah, he drives north, right? He drives the offense from the back end. I don't think you're going to get as much defensively, but certainly it's an element to his game that he can add.
And he knew.
Yeah, fair point.
He was expecting all these big things. Nothing happened for him or the team. Now he's
Why
got
is
20
this
games left to prove that he can play.
Yeah.
Because he's not going to get this same $7 million deal for 1 year anywhere. He's gonna have to prove himself for 20 games, and he is a better player than Kalen Addison. Both, I think he's bigger, he's playoff ready, and I think they'll like him there a lot.
Is he a difference maker or just an addition?
He can be for Minnesota, because Minnesota, amongst the good teams, and they're one of the good teams that make the playoffs, they don't score at all.
Mm-hmm.
They grind, they play hard, they play.
Yeah, Minnesota needs that scoring.
They need, you don't need a big difference maker to make a big difference.
They win
You're Minnesota.
win games than anybody.
We saw them play last week against
That's it. Minnesota needs that offense.
Any incremental change is good, Greg.
Yeah, we saw that, Andrew. A Richie and a Richie switching spots.
Stars went to the Stanley Cup. If you watched John Klingberg last year in the first round versus Calgary, he was every bit a difference maker and more in every regard.
Rare Craig Button W there. Extremely rare.
He goes to Anaheim, and you know what? The spirit's not even lit there. You're just playing to do it. And yes, now he's got incentive contract-wise, but this guy's been a difference maker and a big difference.
He has been a big difference maker in the past.
Great trade for the Minnesota Wild.
Right. Not only you're playing for a bad team.
They know Slim. You watch a few games on Anaheim and you think he's horrible. He had no incentive this year.
Right. All right. So
John Klingberg had no incentive this year. He wanted a big contract. He didn't get it. His final gasp was to sign a one-year deal with Anaheim in the hopes of getting traded at the deadline, and this is exactly what happened. He was a big difference maker last season with the Stars, especially in the postseason. He was an above-average wins above replacement percentile player, 92nd percentile of offense, way above average for the average defenseman for goals and primary assists per 60. No, come on, Slim, don't give me that. You can look at his own individual metrics. Don't just say any offensive defenseman is bad, but if they play well, it's because of the guy that carried them. Come on. John Klingberg, acquired by the Wild, is a skilled puck-moving defenseman who's great on the power play. He's also the worst defensive player on the worst defensive team of the Cap era. Truly just gave up on defending entirely. There was no passion inside of him, and I don't blame him for that at all. Now, put John Klingberg on the Minnesota Wild and allow him to be consistently in the lineup, get him back to 22-plus minutes per night, give him responsibility, give him a reason, a volia, a reason to be out there. Then we might see a resurrection, not of anything. No, I'm not going to say crazy. He was never a crazy defensive player. He was a difference maker. That doesn't mean that he's blocking 8 shots a night and shut down everything. He was a difference maker, which is what Minnesota needs, especially in terms of offense, where they're winning all these grindy 1-goal games. The Ducks are horrible, and Klingberg is not a good defensive player on a horrible defensive team. It's going to get even worse. It's a recipe for disaster. Put everything together now in Minnesota, a stronger defensive team that needs offense and can afford him to insulate him, whatever you want to call it. Yes, this makes a lot more sense for Minnesota to have John Klingberg than for Anaheim to have him, as we will wait for the official details on that one to come through. But Ken Holland currently talking to the media. Let's listen in a bit on that.
Bush played last year in the playoffs. Obviously, our second pair defense really for all 3 rounds, I think it was a Duncan Bush. So it's not like this is Bush's first playoff run. He was in. We played last year against LA. We played against Calgary. He played against Colorado. He's got a good veteran partner there. Obviously, the other night he was with Ekholm. Not sure if he's going to do that the entire rest of the run, but certainly I think right now that's what it looks like. So, Desharnais's 25 years old. It's not like he's 21 or 22. And Broby's a 21-year-old. So at some point in time, you're going to have to play some playoff games. I mean, or else we can hold them out. You can't hold them out to their 25, 26, 27, 28. They got
Good points here as well. Look at this. The blue is why the Wild would want John Klingberg. The red is what they're going to try to cover up. You know, you can afford this. This was his projection card coming into the year. Forget the crazy, horrible time in Anaheim. This is what he can do. So give him the Minnesota Wild and a team that hopes he'll continue doing this and hopes that this and this won't matter as much. Well, then that makes much more sense.
We did whatever we could do. Obviously, we cut Bukestad in half. He's on our roster at $450K. So I think we got like $1,000 left.
And just as a follow-up to Mark's question about Desharnais and I guess even Philip Broberg, they're both very young guys, rookies. What have you seen from them to give you the confidence that they can do the job?
Richie and Richie.
I mean, I've watched. I mean, you've watched them. I mean, they play regular.
Have you seen that's kind of?
Well, what do I see? I mean, they play regular. Obviously, Desharnais, he's 6'7". If you look at our defense, he's 6'7". Broberg's 6'3". Ekholm's 6'4". Nurse is.
We'll continue to listen in to Ken Holland for a little bit as we wait to see if any other news breaks.
6'2" is the smallest guy on our defense, so I like the size of our defense. I like Broberg. He's 6'3", and that he's got mobility. He can gap up. Desharnais obviously can kill penalties, block shots. He can make the 10-foot pass to get you transitioned and get you going. I like that Desharnais 25 years old and he's not 21 years old, and certainly Broby's a younger guy, but he was a high pick in the draft, and I think that he's spent 2 years playing in the Swedish Elite League. He spent a year in the American Hockey League. He's kind of been up and down. So at some point in time, to Mark's question, you got to give people an opportunity. I think to this point in time, they've earned it. And then there's the cap, and obviously, if you try to replace them, you get their money to replace them. So it's not like you can replace a guy that makes 800. I think Vinny's,
he loves mentioning the size, eh?
It's a puzzle for me. I don't look at one individual piece. So, not only that they contribute, but obviously they contribute at a low cap number, which kind of lets you do things elsewhere.
I'm curious about the timeline of Mattias Ekholm, because he just signed that contract. This is the first year of his contract in Nashville. It looked like Nashville going to this year had high hopes. When did he become a realistic target for you, and what subsequently kind of made him appealing to you?
When did he become a realistic target?
When did you think he kind of became like a realistic target that you?
Well, I think when they started to fall out of it. I talked to David Poyle last. We were in Columbus or Pittsburgh sometime last week, and he said that that they were with where they were in the standings that Ekholm could be available, and
for real, tic-tac.
So over the course of probably a week, we pieced it together.
Obviously, in Ekholm, you get a guy that defends in a way that you like. But the decision to move on from Tyson Barrie, maybe just take us through the thought process. Obviously, he touches a lot of different parts of the game and was important in the room. So I can imagine there was some.
So Dante Fabro, by the way,
making a move like that with him.
Cap related. I think it's it.
Expiry status RFA. So he was an expiring RFA, gets a 1-year deal, $2.5 million. Once again, will be an RFA in the 2024 off season.
That's $7.5 million. Well, we brought in Ekholm at 6 because we got a 4% reduction at 6.
We have a return for the John Klingberg trade. Here we go. Let's do this. Thank you, Dabrowski-Ego. We have a return for the John Klingberg deal. The Minnesota Wild will be sending to the Anaheim Ducks. They will be sending, not seeing it yet, hold on, a 4th in 2025, Andre Suster, and the rights to Nestorenko. Huh? And yeah, Edmonton, they really don't ask any tough questions, eh? Versus Montreal or Toronto media. So not the biggest haul in the end for the Anaheim Ducks. So Suster, let's go ahead and pull him up. Suster going to, that's per Joe Smith. Joe who? Let's go Suster. Suster. Ducks win this trade. They could have gotten more. They spent $7 million on a guy that they wanted to try and get value from, and they end up getting Suster, a prospect, and a fourth. Nah, Ducks lose this trade, in my opinion. They get value, which is fine. They get nothing, they get something which is better than nothing. But you would have thought that when they signed him for $7 million in the offseason, he would have been a perfect first or second round pick flip at the deadline. Yeah, Suster's gritty. That'll help him to get from 31st to 30th place. That's great. Suster this season, what has he done in Tampa Bay? 1 goal in 15 games. I say, oh no, he hasn't played at all this season. Yeah, what am I saying? Hold on, let me go over to Hockey DB. Who's Joe? Suster. Let me see this. Yeah, Anaheim. They don't need a $7 million defenseman. They need a guy who hasn't played in the NHL in like a year. There you go. 12 points in 39 games with the Iowa Wild. Much rather have him than John Klingberg. There you go. Yeah, there you go. Let your grit keep you warm at night, Slim. So Andre Suster moving, as well as a 4th round pick and the rights to Nestorenko. Let's pull this up. Nestorenko. I'll admit, not a player that I know. I would assume that it is Nikita Nestorenko, as Eric was born in the year 1933. Nikita Nestorenko, 6th round pick in 2019, 30 points in 32 games as a centerman at Boston College. So not a bad pick for the Ducks. Not a horrible, unusable prospect. I'll take it if I'm Anaheim, but not what you thought you were going to be getting out of John Klingberg when you signed him in the offseason. So there's the return that we're getting right now on John Klingberg to the Minnesota Wild in exchange for the rights to Nestorenko, a 4th round pick, and more just the contract move of getting Andre Suster moved over there. If all, yeah, it would have been a bonkers day if it was all condensed in today. Absolutely. But it's been a fun time nonetheless. Canadians officially done. No more teams, no more trades made. Edmondson gets his wish and remains with the team. Kent Hughes will be speaking momentarily. That's what I'm going to be looking forward to hearing. I just want to put Klingberg's defensive numbers in perspective before the Wild ruin them. The Ducks gave up 42.2 shots and 4.2 expected goals per 60 minutes that he's on the ice at 5v5. The Oilers get 37.8 shots and 3.8 expected goals per 60 when McDavid is on the ice at 5v5. So put it into perspective how bad the Ducks are right now as well. Yeah, Rookie of the Year in 2021 as well, Nestorenko, so that's something to add in. Rock and Scooby-Doo, the prospect makes more sense, but still lacking return in my opinion. The prospect definitely makes it a lot more even, definitely bridges the divide a lot more, but you would still think that at the time of signing John Klingberg, they thought for sure we can get a 1st-round pick at the deadline for him. They did not give up too much more for Klingberg. Seems like the Wild did not give up much for Klingberg, minor players and pick. Similarly, told the Flyers didn't get interest level to materialize for JVR. Detroit was up front. They had obstacles, was never considered done. Philly pushed, but couldn't find taker at half retained. Well then, salut la visite. That's your problem, Philly. You're going to tell me you can't get someone to take JVR at 50% retained for a 7th round pick? Take anything you can. You are a bottom-feeding team with a UFA. Trade him for literally, and I mean literally, anything. A lunch in downtown Philly the next time you guys are playing against each other. Anything. Come on. Now you're going to pay his full salary and let him fester away. That's it. Come on. Let's see what James is saying here.
Corrado, we're about to explain.
Frankie Corrado. There we go. Always my favorite source of information.
Go till 5 o'clock, right, James? Is because you never know. The trades could still be.
Yeah, Julian McKenzie. He's great. I love Julian McKenzie. Can the Flames just give Nick the same number and stall and save some money on the jerseys there? They probably asked too much for JVR, half retained, and teams want to pay that price. Understandably. But why don't you bring your price down then? Are you that stubborn to say, no, we don't get what we want, we're going to stick with our guy? Well, that's how you continue to fester in mediocrity. Come on. The same argument for Kerfoot 2 data. Tisk, tisk, tisk. Yeah, that's a fair point here. I don't think Kerfoot was as well. At least if the Flyers making the postseason, as bad as JVR has been, or whatever you can say, whatever, he's a part of the team. Let's keep him for the run. Same for Kerfoot. You have the money. May as well keep him at this point if you're not moving him. You don't move him, not the end of the world. You use him, you lose him. See you later. But to say that the Flyers are a bottom-feeding team and would benefit from literally anything, come on. Come on now. It is Chuck Fletcher after all. Wesley Benjamin. Wes, thank you for joining us. I hate Fletcher. Hey, Flyers fans out there, go check out the Flyers franchise mode series back in NHL 22. Man. Juice, could you imagine that trade announcement? JVR traded to the return as a lunch in downtown Philly. I think that would make more sense than saying we didn't trade him.
Many messages coming in, and I sent a message to my girlfriend, who's now my wife. I said, I got traded. And she calls me back. She goes, don't you think that's a phone call? Maybe? And she had told me that. Sorry.
Corrado talking about getting traded a few hours after the deadline a few years ago.
Anyway, she had told me that she was checking Twitter that whole day right up until 3 o'clock, and she felt relieved because at 3 o'clock nothing had been released saying that I'd been traded. Then sure enough, at 3:18, Pierre LeBrun.
Oh, only at 3:18.
I had been traded for the Pittsburgh Penguins. I was pretty happy though. It was a fresh start. It was a new beginning for me. I was going to a new organization. But yeah, it's funny how that thing happens. And when you think about all day, you're kind of sitting around waiting, and then at like one moment where you have so many things going on, everything changes and so much is happening at once.
There you have it. Pierre LeBrun starting domestics one tweet at a time. Back to you, James.
All right, thank you very much. And just a reminder of the stress that play.
Boy, yeah, Wes saying good to be here, man. It's been quite some time since I've interacted with the community, buddy. We're always here for you. Hope everything's going well. Hope the classes are going well. Hope school's going well for the kids. Always great to be able to touch base with you. Now, going back to the Twitter sphere, we see that the Wild making this deal adds $3.5 million annual to their cap hit and $795,000 cap hit for the remainder of the year. They move a 2025 fourth, Suster, who is making $750K in the minors, and Nestorenko, who was a rookie of the year in the NCAA last year, was it? Or 2 years ago, sorry. With the Leafs not making any additions today, they've left enough cap space to activate Matt Murray from LTIR in the coming days and sign Matthew Nees to an entry-level contract when his NCAA season ends. So all things to be kept in consideration. The Canadiens also did a paper transaction. They sent Raphael Harvey-Pinard and Jesse Ylönen down to make them eligible to be returned to Laval later on if they make the postseason so that they can play in them. Very good, very good. This was an interesting deadline. It was. And we're still going to stream for another half hour. It's been 2.5 hours. Time has really flown by. We'll still do it for another half hour. For anyone who's enjoyed it, please leave a like if you have enjoyed the ride so far. Thank you for the donations that have come in as I've been talking straight for a couple hours, 2.5 hours now. Very much appreciated for the channel and all the various costs for games and equipment and stuff like that. As well, also make sure that you're subscribed for more information on the real world of hockey. We'll have postseason breakdowns coming up, as well as NHL 23 videos. We'll be predicting the postseason, running a simulation after the deadline, all fun stuff like that. Franchise mode, career simulations, and much, much more. And we'd love to have you join in and be a part of it, especially by joining in on the Discord server, link in the description, where it's always a blast, where we're talking much more hockey as well. Owen also surprised that the players we thought were being traded didn't. So of the top 10 on the TSN trade bait board, only 4 got traded in the end. 2 of the top 5 and 2 of the bottom 5. So there you go. Kulikov and Klingberg in the top 5. There you go. Let's see. Does it burn a year of ELC if you sign an NCAA player and they play less than 10 games at the end of the season? Wasn't sure if it's similar to CHL players. I think so. I was hearing on the radio earlier today the Canadiens are considering signing Sean Farrell, but I believe it does burn a year of ELC. That's the less than 10 games thing might be what gets me, but I'm fairly certain that it does burn a year. Quick recap. Let's see, Legend. No problem. Thanks for joining in. We got John Klingberg to the Minnesota Wild as the big move of the day. On top of that, we have various depth moves that included Nick Bonino to the Penguins, Dmitry Kulikov to the Penguins, Oscar Sundqvist to the Wild, Jordan Greenway to the Sabres, Vladislav Nemesnikov to the Jets. Jakub Vrana to the Blues. I think that's about it for the major moves. Minor league deal involving the Avalanche per Peter Baugh, and that'll be it for them. All right, so a minor league deal that's in the pipeline there. But I would think at this point, usually when things are still going for a few hours, there's like a lot of steady trades coming, but it's been a bit dry for the last little bit. I would think this is likely getting close to the end here. Canadiens trade deadline was disappointing. Also close to boring, but predictable. Yeah. Oh, but the Gurianov trade was also good, but I'll still keep it as just disappointing. The Wild now carry 8 defense with Goligoski staying put. As I reported this morning, Michael Musso, it felt like they'd want a D and were willing to move Goligoski if he wanted. But now that he's staying, Goligoski/Addison may be the extras once Jonas Brodin is back. Gotcha. Someone get this guy to step school. No problem, legend. Flyers GM Chuck Fletcher says he didn't receive a firm offer from any team on JVR. Says they spoke with one team about a trade concept, but it was a conditional on that team making another move. That's Detroit. And that move didn't happen. Worked the market hard past few hours, but no fit. Come on, here we go. Time to tweet. But no fit. But no fit. Buddy, you have an expiring player at the top of the trade bait board who you'd be lucky to cut bait on and save a few $100,000. Leafs didn't want... No, the Leafs couldn't make that happen. Buddy, you have an expiring player at the top of the trade bait board who you'd be lucky to cut bait on and save a few $100,000 with. And you... Plus Seattle, Vegas, Colorado, etc. interested. And you couldn't just swallow your pride and accept a deeper pick? Come on. Let me try to save some space. Even let's somehow fill in the Philly cheesesteak. Let's try and let's see what these guys have to say while I work on this tweet.
Season, well, sure. Kachuk and Huberdeau contracts that are sued, and both teams end up being worse off. Maybe the two of the most disappointing teams in the NHL this season. Let's hear from the GM of the Ottawa Senators for now, Pierre Dorian.
Is cheesesteak one word or 2 words?
Want me to just go ahead? Thank you. Before I start off, I just want to thank our group here in Ottawa. We've had a long 5 days. They've been here since Monday morning, Pro Scouts management. We came back late last night.
Cheesesteak, one word?
Early this morning.
Thanks.
I beat everyone to the rink this morning, though. I was here before 7. And I just want to thank them all for their help. A lot of times it's me up front, but there's a lot of people in the background that do a lot of work, so I want to make sure that they're thanked for all their efforts. Questions?
Just can you start with Patrick Brown and then?
Yeah. For us, our goal today was to add.
There's the minor deal. Gustav Ridal from New York to Colorado for Anton Bleed.
Whether it's a penalty killing role, a character role, and that's what we did with Patrick.
Yeah, fair point from Mark Dumont here. Circumstances mitigated potential deals.
6.5 for career. He's someone that, from all our background checks on him, someone that we know.
Where's the Kent Hughes press conference?
Well,
bang, let's go listen to Kent Hughes. Sorry, no offense to the Senators fans, but I want to hear Kent Hughes. It's on TVA.
Fred Voyage a fait hier, là, il a dit qu'il voulait rester à Montréal. Qu'est-ce que ça a dit sur le joueur en question, mais aussi sur le processus de l'équipe? Ça veut dire qu'il accepte le processus de l'équipe. Donc, est-ce que c'est positif pour vous dans le sens où ça veut dire qu'on est sur le bon chemin s'il y a un vétéran qui veut rester ici?
Oui, je pense. Écoute, j'avais dit quand j'ai accepté ma poste ici, c'est sûr que je viens de Montréal, mais c'était la seule poste que j'aurais accepté comme gérant.
Yeah, you're right there, Legend. That's a good point, Legend.
On entend souvent parler que Montréal n'est pas au top des listes de destinations pour jouer à la Ligue nationale, mais pour nous, écoute, de jouer dans une ville comme Montréal, au Centre Bell, avant 20 000 personnes, nos partisans doivent être parmi les meilleurs, si pas le meilleur, dans le sport. Alors, je suis content de savoir que Joel veut rester ici. J'ai l'impression, au moins, je ne suis pas au courant qu'il y a un joueur qui ne veut pas jouer ici, puis on entend nos jeunes joueurs dire qu'ils veulent rester à Montréal. On croit que il y a tellement d'affluents à Montréal, puis j'espère que la culture et l'environnement qu'on est en train d'établir va ajouter à ça.
Une petite dernière sur lui pour ma part. Est-ce que son état de santé, est-ce qu'il va être bon pour jouer jusqu'à la fin de la saison ou il va avoir des...
I'm sorry, Owen.
Parce que c'est quand même un problème récurrent qui revient depuis l'an dernier.
Je crois que oui.
I believe that. I didn't get to hear the question.
100%. C'est quand t'as une blessure qui... c'est pas la première fois.
I mean, just some live translations.
C'est possible, mais je crois que nos docteurs croient que...
Our doctors believe that.
Dans son cas, on était peut-être prudent.
In his heart, we have to be careful. We don't have another injury because we were too rushed to make something happen. I mean, I would assume they're talking about Sean Monahan. Yeah, that's just slim.
We don't think so.
Is it the original injury or a new injury?
We're learning every day how interrelated everything is on the body, and compensatory injuries are certainly a part of it, but no, we don't think it was.
But as valuable as he was moving forward, what was the thinking when allowing him to play? So showing up to be in the cast and taking on and putting the cast back on.
So we actually met and talked to him about it. I was with him, and we met with the doctors, and we kind of went through. The doctor's advice was to take 2 weeks off, and I think at this point Sean's foot's perfectly healed, so we can. The bone typically takes about 2 months to heal. The notion was to give him a couple of weeks and hope to let the inflammation and dust the pain. But Sean wasn't experiencing any pain other than when he was in the skate.
Yeah, new injury for Sean Monahan, basically. New injury.
Hopping over the boards, the compression of landing on his feet. So that was...
Well, Owen, you could probably just wait for the roster update, right? But ladies and gentlemen, I think that'll likely be the last transaction in terms of the deadline day. What we're going to do now over the next 20 minutes, 30 minutes, what we're going to do is going to break down the deadline as a whole. I want to look at the winners and the losers of the deadline week, we'll call it. What team did what they had to do? What moves did they make? And what are we seeing moving forward? So let's start off right here. And let's look at the Anaheim Ducks. The Anaheim Ducks were sellers today. They went ahead and say in the last, since February 23rd, they made a little depth swap here. They get a third for Henry Thrun, a good prospect who wasn't going to sign with them. Depth move, and they get a third-round pick in Brock McGinn for Dmitry Kulikov, and they get a prospect, a fourth, and Suster for John Klingberg, which is not here just yet. So I think it's a good deadline for the Ducks. They sold who they probably really wanted to sell. They still had some more pieces, such as a Kevin Shattenkirk that they could have moved on from, but they're two big pieces. Kulikov and Klingberg get moved. Adam Henrique was another one that you probably could have considered moving. Maybe the injury came to play over there a little bit. Still some other expiring moves. John Gibson was spoken about at one point. We'll get to the most disappointing teams at deadline soon. I think Calgary is a very disappointing one. I would think Seattle also disappointing. So we'll continue to look at breaking news as it happens, but let's start getting into the breakdown of the rest of the league. So there's Anaheim. I like what they had to do. They did what they did. They didn't have too much to do. They traded a couple of their big pieces, and I think we can call it a thumbs up kind of day. kind of week as well for the Ducks. Arizona Coyotes, same thing. Their job was just to recoup picks and just do as much as and be brokering deals, and that's exactly what they did. They get Shea Weber. They acquire Shea Weber and a 5th-round pick for moving away Dyson Mayo. They acquire a 3rd-round pick for taking on Patrick Kane's salary. They move out Ghost Despair for a 3rd-round pick. They move out Chychrun for a 1st and 2 seconds. They move out John Gillies so that they can eat Jakub Voracek's contract and get a 6th-round pick for it. Plus, it moves them above the cap floor. And then they also move out Nick Bjugstad and get a 3rd plus Michael Kesserling in exchange for that. So the Coyotes, I think they did exactly what they had to do. This trade deadline week was a big win for them. Big thumbs up for the Coyotes, I would say. You would think that they could have done even more if they wanted, but at a certain point, you got to say, come on. Owen has to go now. Thanks for this live stream. Most informative, and you were talking with us the whole stream. See you next time. Not a single break through the whole thing so far. Thanks, Owen. I appreciate you being a part of it. Thank you very much. The Coyotes are just absolutely loaded with draft picks right now. On top of that, you would have thought maybe I had heard, who was it? I had heard, it was, Vejmelka. It was heard that Vejmelka was maybe in like a Kings swap at one point, but that didn't materialize, and that's okay. I think the Kings did everything they had to do. They have all 3 of their salary cap spots filled for retaining salary. They have their cupboards full of picks. I love it for the Coyotes in this deadline. Atlanta Flames, Atlanta Thrashers, Boston Bruins. All right, the Bruins definitely did what they had to do as well, as it cost a lot. But again, with that Tampa Bay mentality, that Toronto mentality of these picks will not be helping us right now. Therefore, let's give this group the best chance possible to succeed. So scrolling back all the way, they hadn't made a trade interesting from July 2021 to February of 2022. Didn't make a single trade, but starting in deadline week here of where am I looking? I'm in 2022. What am I doing? From October to February 2023, they made no trades. Okay, so they acquired Garnet Hathaway. They acquired Dmitry Orlov, who has been amazing ever since coming over. Is it 3 goals, 3 assists, 6 points in 2 games or in 3 games? But still, great moves there to pick up Hathaway and Orlov, as it cost them a 1st, 2nd, and a 3rd in Craig Smith to do it, though, plus a pick to get retention from the Wild. They get Shane Bowers from the Avalanche, a little reclamation project. Why not for Keith Kincaid? And they get Tyler Bertuzzi at 50% retained for a 1st and a 4th. So the Bruins, I think they did exactly what they had to do, especially with the injuries now coming to Taylor Hall and Nick Foligno. They did exactly what they had to do. They have $39,504 left. And you know what? As hard as it is to say, we used so many picks, they still have a 1st and 2/3 in the next 3 years. Not a lot. Don't get me wrong. They used all their 1st, 2nd, 3rd in 2024. They pretty much emptied out the cabinets, but they still have more. Not in terms of, okay, now they can use that in 2025, but in terms of if they want to try to run it back next season, they still have some more capital to try and get something done a little bit. Plus 2026 picks even, right? They had Pasternak extended as well. 8 points in 4 games for Orlov now? Sheesh. So the Bruins will be a very different team next season, you would think, depth-wise, with a lot of these expiring contracts. But the core hopefully will stick around, and the Bruins did what they had to do. Moving back over here, looking at the list of teams. So there's the Bruins. Buffalo Sabres, not much to say about them. They're in the hunt for the postseason. They're out of a wild card spot by 3 points with a game in hand over the Penguins. Technically, in winning percentage, they're above the Islanders because they have 5 games in hand on them. So also important to note, the Buffalo Sabres are not out of this. I think the Islanders and the Penguins make it and the Sabres don't, but the Sabres are not out of it yet. They don't do too much recently. They trade away Anders Bjork, basically the whole trade of Taylor Hall from the Sabres to the Bruins. Just that's it. Pretty much the last piece of it moves away. Let me see. Starting with acquiring Riley Stillman, then they trade out Eric Portillo for a 3rd. They trade out Anders Bjork to free up some money. They make a depth move right here. But most importantly, and then of course they move out Asplund for some money as well for a 7th round pick. Bruins are crazy scary, yes. Their biggest move of the day, of the deadline, they move out a 2nd and a 5th to acquire Jordan Greenway. Oh, here's Dubas talking right now.
Make a trade in the season.
Hold on.
When you only have about less than a quarter of it or a quarter of it to go.
worried about the players coming in and integrating into the group. And so far, it's been good. I think it's a bit of fortune that we're on the road as much as we are here. And so it's easier for the guys to come together, and we have another couple of longer road trips as well. So we're happy with where we're at and excited for the last quarter of the season for us to get ourselves ready, secure our spot in the playoffs, and then be ready to roll from there. And with that, I'll turn it over to any questions anybody has.
What was today like for the crowd? Did you get close on anything?
Well, we did. We made a trade. We made a trade today with Dryden Hunt going to Calgary in return for Radim Zohorna. We just felt it further helped our depth at center that we can recall from if we need, and also alleviates a bit of a veteran problem with the Marlies, and which doesn't, I think, gain a lot of traction in terms of public interest, but it is important to us as an organization. And Zohorna is a guy that we liked when he came over and went to Pittsburgh, and then had liked in the American League with Calgary's club there. So we're happy with that.
Did you get a sense of so busy just getting all the moves you made?
Yeah, we had kind
Wyatt
of
Kalnick to New York from Vancouver.
Deal kind of all blend together. So I think that was Monday. We obviously we had a move to make just to ready our team salary cap wise, and after kind of sorting through all the options there, we only had some time until today. We made the move there on Tuesday. 3 separate moves in succession to make that all happen. So once we knew that, I kind of felt it would be, barring something completely unforeseen and a little bit outside the box, knew that this would probably be fairly light in terms of activity later in the week here.
Pretty rare that a team in the top 5 makes this much change to its roster kind of on the fly. At what point did you realize that you needed to make this many changes?
I never set out, Luke, to try to make a lot of changes. I think it was just more trying to identify what we needed, address that, and then further address what were going to be the impacts of that relative to the salary cap, player injury statuses, and different things of that nature. So in a perfect year, I think you would go in and feel you didn't have to do anything. But in this era where the cap isn't really grown, you take the summer, you try to address things as best possible, and then you take the first 40 games and really try to measure where you're at and take as much time.
Okay.
I do have a lot of faith in what I've...
All right, so not much to say from Dubas. He made a deal happen, and he's happy with this group. He wants to let them gel together now. There you go. All right, so let's continue looking at the week that was. So the Sabres get Greenway, a player who at his best has been a 45-plus point pace player, but now this year on pace for like 13 points, really tough time. Still getting ice time, just not clicking, I guess. The Sabres pick him up. We'll try to fix him and get him back to how he has been, making $3 million for the next 2 years. It cost them a second and a fifth. I like it for the Sabres. Did they do everything that they had to do? Maybe they could have done more in the hunt, but I like that they at least made that move. Okay. Moving on to the Calgary Flames now. I think they are one of the biggest losers of the entire deadline, as their only move was picking up Dryden Hunt in exchange for Radim Zohorna. Just a depth move. Who knows how much Dryden Hunt even plays as like 13th forward or so. So the Flames, unfortunately, I say this with pain in my heart, because I want the Flames to be fighting for the postseason. I have lots of shares of Jonathan Huberdeau in my fantasy hockey leagues. The Flames, really just the biggest losers of the week, I have to say. The absolute biggest losers. They're up there with other teams. The Flames did not do what they had to do, and it's okay if you're saying we're not going to make it. But then, my goodness, go ahead and sell a few pieces then. Just to waffle in the middle like that, they had to do something. Where the West is open, they had to do something. Maybe you say, okay, we believe in these guys. We don't need to do anything. A trade can do a lot for a group to say that you believe in them. To try and get to catch up to Winnipeg, it's disappointing that they didn't do anything. So Flames, they really disappointed me. The California Golden Seals, not quite. The Carolina Hurricanes didn't do much today. Actually, didn't do anything today. But they did make 2 moves in the last week, I like both of those. Jesse Puljujärvi and Shane Gostisbehere joined the team in exchange for, in total, a third in 2026. So I'll be married with kids by then. And Patrick Pristola in the Puljujärvi deal, a prospect who's never even been in North America yet. So I think in terms of the value you got for the value you gave, amazing. The Hurricanes did very well this week. Could they have done more? I think with the money involved and with the good team that they already have, I don't think they had to. So I think the Hurricanes did just all right. I know they were in on some other pieces. They were in on many other pieces that they didn't get. But in the end, Puljujarvi and Gostis Bear, I like both those pickups. And the Hurricanes, I give them a thumbs up for deadline week. Now on to the Chicago Blackhawks. They did what they had to do. Sell, and get as many picks as you can. Domi, Wells, out for Khudobin in a second. Eat that salary. Taking on Anders Bjork for free. Why not? They move out Patrick Kane. Don't get a ton as much as you would maybe think, but with no leverage, it's understandable. They move out Jake McCabe, Sam Lafferty, get back a first, a second, a prospect. Move out Jack Johnson. And they even take on Nikita Zaitsev and a second and a fourth just for doing Ottawa a favor earlier on in February. So a good week for the Blackhawks. They did what they had to do. It hurts. They're poverty right now, but they have the picks. They have the salary cap. They can hopefully continue on this trend next season in terms of sign players on these deals, trade them at the deadline, recoup what you can, build from that, and move forward. I think they'll be all right. Many years away, but they'll be all right. The Avalanche, I think they also did what they had to do. They bring back Jack Johnson, which is a nice depth piece. They get Lars Eller at 31% retained, so he's going to be helping their center depth, which was struggling. And aside from that, they picked up Matt Nieto, Ryan Merkley for Martin Kaut and Jacob McDonald in January. And that's about it. I think the Avalanche are also a very strong team that did not have to do much, similar to Carolina. And getting Lars Eller and Jack Johnson are two nice additions to the team. Columbus Blue Jackets, they sold as they moved out Jonathan Quick, who they didn't really have. They get Jacob Voracek off the books, which is great, and it doesn't cost them really anything to do it, as Arizona needs to take on the money. And they also move out Gavrikov, the biggest deal, also Korpisalo, for a first and a third, and then Quick, who became a seventh, and Hutchinson. So there you go for that big deal there. Gustav Nyquist moves out for a fifth. So essentially, in deadline week, they move out Nyquist, Gavrikov, Korpisalo, Hutchinson, and a seventh, and Voracek, sorry, what am I read that wrong, sorry. They move out Nyquist, Gavrikov, Korpisalo, and Voracek, and a sixth in exchange for a first, a third, a fifth, a sixth, a seventh, Michael Hutchinson, and that's it. There you go. So I like what the Blue Jackets did this draft week, this deadline week, excuse me. It's unfortunate that they were in such a position when they had Johnny Gaudreau and Zach Werenski, and they should have had a much better season, but that's how the cards fell, and that's what's happened to them in the end. Let me just pull this over. Give me a quick second. We're almost at the 3-hour mark over here. And back over here. There we go. So there's Columbus Blue Jackets. I think they sold what they needed to sell, and they also have a lot of salary cap open for next season without Voracek in the mix, which will allow them to hopefully be players in free agency and convince some guys to say, hey, listen, Gaudreau is going to have some better line mates. Werenski is going to be fully healthy. Here, we got a ton of money. Come on over here, and we'll make it worth your while. Because your third highest paid forward is Jack Roslovic. That's not going to fly. Boone Jenner, can he really be your first line centerman for too long? Erica Branson making $4 million for 3 more years. Like you need, you're just filling up cap space right now. Who's going to play between the pipes with Elvis? So next year, current cap space, forget even next year, just current cap space, only 2.86? No, but projected, current cap space, 21 million if you take all that stuff into consideration. So they'll have money to use. Sorry for the discombobulation there on the Blue Jackets. All right, Dallas Stars, I think they had to be buyers, and they made a swap to get Scott Reedy. They acquired Max Domi. They acquire Evgeny Dadonov. They move out Dennis Guryanov, Anton Khudobin, a second-round pick. I think this is all good stuff. I like these moves for the Stars. I don't think they give up crazy value or long-term or anything like that. Dadonov has been doing well with the Stars. Guryanov has been doing well with the Canadiens. I think it was a win-win in the end for both sides, and I like that deal right there for everyone involved, especially for Dallas as they're trying to win their division and have a run. As, like I said, as I've been saying, the West is wide open. Let's just get a quick update here over on Twitter. Anything new that we want to catch up on? Ducks are done for the day. Wild gets Lindquist and Klingberg. If Dryden Hunt scores a goal for Calgary, he would be the first NHL player to ever score for 4 teams in one season. No kidding. Thank you. How did I stream for 4 hours while most of the biggest trade was Nemestikov, says Gav. Yeah, Grav has been doing his own stream over there. I guess he's done his stream now. And the Penguins have $1.376 million cap space after the Kulikov deal. So, okay, nothing else coming our way over here. Detroit, I think they had a very odd deadline. And now that the deadline is passed, I'm ready to go ahead and proclaim that I am not happy with the Red Wings. Scroll down to what their first move was. Here we go. So they move Hronek and a 4th for a 1st and a 2nd. In terms of value, it's great. In terms of making sense, didn't make a whole lot of sense for me. They then move out Bertuzzi for a 1st and a 4th. Again, decent value, but it must be that something's going on behind the scenes, that they knew Bertuzzi wasn't signing on, or Hronek wasn't happy to keep staying in Detroit, and he thought they were moving into a selling phase. I don't know what. They also move out Oscar Sundqvist, which that's fine for a 4th. They move out Verana at retained for a 7th. That's just a tough pill they had to swallow. But if this was also in addition, if this at the top of this list was JVR for a 2nd or something like that, that would have been ridiculous. Absolutely ridiculous. So for Detroit to be moving out pieces when they're a fringe team, this has been like a good proof of concept type of season for Detroit. They've been doing well. Yes, they're still closer to the bottom than the top, but technically they're only 5 points out of a wild card spot. So with 20 games to go, in theory, they could still make that up. I don't think they will. I don't think they thought that they would. But it's no need to have a fire sale, especially for a guy like Hronek who had term. Bertuzzi, I guess I could understand. But a guy like Hronek, and then to take on, if you were going to give up value to get JVR, get him in free agency or get him at the draft for even cheaper if you want to have him next season. But to have him now, you don't need him now. Really made no sense whatsoever. Not sure what the thought process was behind that for the Red Wings, but thankfully it did not go through. They had another deal they had to make. It didn't work out. It didn't happen. Thank goodness. Edmonton Oilers, they had to do something, and they did. They get Matthias Ekholm and Nick Bjugstad on board. Getting Klim Kostin. Is that a Klim Kostin or Klim Kostin? Getting Kostin in there. Got to head out, but as usual, I'll catch you all in Discord. Thank you, Hobbsy. Appreciate you being here. So Kostin has been a good pickup for the Oilers. Getting Puljujarvi out was just to dump money and to say good luck somewhere else. They moved Tyson Barrie, Reed Schaefer, a 1st and a 4th for Matthias Ekholm. So that's at 4% retained. That's good in theory to say, just if you say the statement, the Oilers got Matthias Ekholm, is that good? Absolutely. But to give up the player who was your best defenseman at that moment and a former 1st-round pick just drafted last season, big power forward winger putting up point per game plus in WHL, and a 1st and a 4th, you better really hope Ekholm is worth it, especially getting paid $6 million when he'll be 35, 36 at the end of that deal. Edmonton getting Nick Bjugstad for a 3rd and Kesserling. I like that deal a lot more. I think Bjugstad is a very good bottom 6 centerman. So the Oilers getting Bjugstad was the better deal in my eyes in terms of, I guess, like winning the deal. Ekholm, obviously the bigger piece, but they gave up a lot to get Ekholm. So the Oilers, another team in the West that have to really make it worth their while. Florida Panthers now, this was probably my top 3 most disappointing on the day. They did not make a single trade. They have not made a move since December. Not a single move since December. Very disappointing for the Florida Panthers. I think they're my 2nd biggest losers of the day by far. Like it's 1 and 2. It goes Calgary, bit of a gap. Florida, huge gap. Everyone else. Because the Panthers are still in that mix for the wild card. They're still in there. They should not. I know they haven't been selling, not as bad as like Washington, who have really just given up, which, okay, if that's your direction, that's your direction. But Florida haven't added, haven't taken away. And you know what? Calgary, massive losers on the day, but at least technically they did something. Florida, it's probably close to the biggest loser between them and Calgary. Big gap between anybody else. But Florida, really disappointing today. Did not do what they had to do at all. And I think that seems to be the last move. No, I don't think any other trades are coming. Florida did not impress me whatsoever. LA Kings, I like what they did. They were close to getting Chychrun. It wasn't there. They said, forget it. We'll get Gavrikov. Moving Jonathan Quick was definitely a spicy decision. Florida and Calgary, both great last year, both made huge trade this summer, both so disappointing this year. Interesting, eh, Tic Tac? Very interesting. Not only were they the two biggest losers, I think, at the deadline and two disappointing teams this season, but they're also the team that made the biggest trade of the offseason, one of the biggest blockbusters of the last decade in the NHL with the Huberdeau-Tkachuk swap, plus Uyghur and everything, right? So the Kings move out Jonathan Quick, which was very controversial, and a first and a third in exchange for getting Gavrikov and Korpisalo. At a time, it sounded like a first, a third plus was just for Gavrikov. In the end, they get Korpisalo along with Gavrikov, and they give the first and the third only, plus Quick, no prospects or anything like that. So if the Kings do not qualify for the playoffs, that won't happen. So Korpisalo, more solid goaltending, I suppose, than Quick has been giving recently. I think he's in like the third or fourth worst in the NHL for expected goals against, for goals saved below expected. I think, goals allowed above expected. Jonathan Quick is third or fourth worst in the NHL this season. So makes sense that the Kings get Korpisalo. So that was a good deal in terms of value, but in terms of trying to do right by your franchise legends and a team favorite, fan favorite, Jonathan Quick, did he really have to be a part of the deal? I don't know. Copley's been doing amazing. So that was a tough one. The Kings also go ahead and acquire Eric Portillo, or Portillo. I call him Portillo. There's a famous restaurant in Chicago called Portillo's with the same spelling, and I used to call it Portillo's, and people would laugh at me. So now I've always been scared of saying that word for a name or for the restaurant. So I'm going to call him Portillo. Oh, but he's from Sweden? Eric Portillo then, I guess. Eric Portillo, third-round pick of Buffalo in 2019. He's been doing very well at the University of Michigan the last 3 years. So I guess he just wasn't, I'm not sure on the whole story on him. I guess he wasn't going to be re-signing. They end up moving him to the Kings for a third-round pick. So that's a great pickup for the Kings. They get Zach McEwen for Brendan Lemieux and a fifth. They get Nate Schnarr for Frédéric Allard, and they give up Austin Wagner just for future considerations. I give this deadline a thumbs up for the LA Kings. Now, Minnesota Wild, major players today. Major players. I'm not sure if I have to refresh. The Klingberg trade is not there yet, but we'll just go ahead assuming that we can just call it done. No, not seeing it, eh? So let's scroll a little bit. There we go. So going back to February the 17th, the Wild acquired a fourth-round pick for brokering the Ryan O'Reilly trade. They acquired a fifth for brokering the Orlov trade, so great to do that. They didn't have to, and they get a fourth and a fifth just for eating some salary. Great. Essentially, they bought those two picks for under $175,000, I believe. They acquire Marcus Johansson for a third and Gustav Nyquist for a fifth. These are the types of moves that a team that is looking to make a deep run makes. I like those acquisitions, those expiring deals, those not top 2-round picks being moved. I like that. Greenway, a player that they do give up higher picks for, a second and a fifth, is a player who has 2 more years of term. Makes a lot more sense, and they're going to try to save his career over in Minnesota now. They're going to try to let Buffalo save his career is what I'm trying to say, and they recoup a second and a fifth. My apologies. And they also get Oscar Sundqvist for a fourth. So in the end, for expiring deals, they get Sundqvist, Johansson, and Nyquist for a third, a fourth, and a fifth. Tidy little bit of GMing right there, although that is not including the John Klingberg deal. Almost went on it without it. They acquired John Klingberg, giving up a decent prospect to do it, but only a fourth-round pick with it as well. So I think in terms of your draft stock, the Wild did very well to not have to give up more than they had to. The Montreal Canadiens, disappointing deadline day. Not disappointing deadline week, I suppose. Gurianov for Dadonov was a solid swap. Gurianov scored last night. Dadonov was just free for taking on for the Shea Weber deal. So that's a big win there in that trade longer term. Allard for Schnarr, whatever, lateral move probably. And then a fifth-round pick and Tony Sund for a fifth and Sund, for brokering the Nick Bonino trade. So not a huge day for the Canadiens. I don't think they had to do much more. Monahan wasn't going to happen. Edmondson has term. Anderson has term. They didn't have to, and they didn't. And I think that's okay. It's just a bit disappointing when there are some higher expectations. The Predators have a big deadline week as they move out Nino Niederreiter for a second. They move out Tanner Jeannot for a first, second, third, fourth, fifth, and Cal Foote. They move out future considerations, no problem, for Isaac Ratcliffe. They move out future considerations for Austin Rushoff, no problem. They acquire, not only do they trade out Ekholm, but they get great value back for him. A younger player, more offensive, making less money. Tyson Barrie at 4.5, plus a first-round drafted prospect, plus a first and a fourth. A second for Mikael Granlund, who still has term as well. You get money and term off your books. And hey, why not? Let me give you a seventh Buffalo for Rasmus Asplund. So the Wild, the Predators in the end, recoup or get back a first, a second, a third, a fourth, a fifth, a first, a fourth, and a second. So I wish I could make that a bit more tidy. 2 firsts, 3 seconds. Is that it? Plus various other picks. Like, just a great bit of management there from David Poile, who, yes, mind you, he had a very disappointing team. He iced a very disappointing team this season. But instead of putting delusion in our minds and thinking we can push and be a fringe team again next season, let's sell off. Let's keep our core. Let's get a boatload of picks and capitalize on the market. And that's exactly what Nashville did. They have a bunch of first, seconds, and thirds now over the next few years. The New Jersey Devils did exactly what they had to do as they acquired. They made that huge deal with the Sharks, essentially getting Timo Meier. It cost them some prospects, a first and a second, and other various pieces. GM Alvin said never had a deal in place for JT. He's talking right now.
This summer, and our scouting staff identified a list of players, and we felt, you never know if players are going to be available or not, but the discussions leading up here to the day we did the trade with Philip there, we felt that at this point in time, we're
now entering the spin zone.
Have an opportunity to acquire a top-end right shot defenseman in Philip Bronick, and being 25 years old and have a chance to control him for another 2 years.
How do you see him fitting in? What do you think his ceiling is in terms of what he can accomplish once he gets here and joins your group?
Yeah, it's interesting. He's definitely given us the way we want to play, the way we want to create an identity here of playing a fast hockey.
Okay, thank you. A little spin zone from Vancouver. So New Jersey, I'm not going to break this whole trade down again, but essentially they don't move out a crazy amount of value. They move out quantity over quality, I would think. Still good pieces, but quantity over quality, a first, a second, and they get Timo Meier, hopefully at an extension coming sometime soon. Huge pickup for them. Depth pickup in Curtis Lazar for a fourth. I think it's a win of a week for the Devils, who are going to have a tough first-round matchup coming up. New York Islanders, they get Pierre Engvall and Bo Horvat essentially in the past month, as it cost them a first, Anthony Beauvillier, Atu Ratti, and a third. So first, a third, a roster player, and a prospect to get Bo Horvat at 25% retained before his 8-year extension starts, and Pierre Engvall, who is a solid bottom 6 forward for them. Good week for the Islanders as well, as they're pushing to make the postseason, and I think they will likely secure that top wildcard spot. New York Rangers, in answering what the Devils have done, have gotten stronger themselves, starting with Vladimir Tarasenko coming to New York. I think that they probably didn't expect Patrick Kane happening at all, but they end up getting both of them. Tarasenko and Mikola for Sammy Blais, first, fourth, Hunter Skinner. They get Tyler Mott for depth. Julien Gauthier wasn't working out for them. They move out Vitaly Kravtsov. They get Austin Rushoff, however you pronounce his name. They acquire Patrick Kane for less than you probably thought they would have had to pay, due to them having all the leverage, as they give like a second and a third, and that second can become a first with some other various pieces and then minor league deals here. But the Rangers essentially getting Kane, Tarasenko, and Mott at this deadline, and I love it for New York. I think they did what they had to do as well. The Ottawa Senators had a great deadline. I don't think they're going to be making the postseason, but they did make their team stronger down the road. It was costly to get Zaitsev off the books, but it turned into Jacob Chychrun. They pick up Julien Gauthier. Why not? Tyler Mott wasn't going to be staying there really anyways. They move out Zaitsev. They acquired Jacob Chychrun with the added cap space. 4.5 out, 4.6 in, only costs $100,000. They give up a first and 2 seconds to make that happen, and it could become 2 firsts and a second, but that's only if they make the Eastern Conference Final this year, which will not happen, unfortunately. Patrick Brown, depth pickup there as well, but they did what they had to do. and it helps them long-term, which I like. Not just saying, hey, let's go for it this year when we're not going to make it. An honest move of saying, let's be stronger moving forward. Now, huge disappointment for the Philadelphia Flyers, solely because they did not move out JVR. Excuse me. Isaac Ratcliffe being moved out for nothing. They move out Zach McEwen and get back Brendan Lemieux in a fifth. I give the win to the Flyers in this one, so why not? You get kind of like the same player, costs more, but you get a fifth-round pick in exchange, and you get a sixth for Patrick Brown. So you recouped a fifth and a sixth and Brendan Lemieux, and you moved out Ratcliffe, McEwen, and Brown. That's about it. There you go. Not a proud day as a Flyers fan, I don't think, in my opinion, unfortunately. Pittsburgh Penguins. Now, I like what the Penguins did. They're showing their team, their fans, their core that we're still in it. Unfortunately, I don't know if they'll even get past the first round. I don't think they will, but they do at least say we're going for it, and it's some deals that help them down the road. Mikael Granlund will be here for another 2 seasons. It only costs them a fifth to get him. They move out Teddy Bluger, which hurts them defensively, and recoup Mikael Granlund in the next deal the same day that will help them offensively. Nick Bonino, who has had experience in Pittsburgh, 2 cups with them, he comes back at 50% retained. That's very nice, and maybe fills in that depth center role that Teddy Bluger had. And you get Dmitry Kulikov added to the blue line for Brock McKinn, who you had put in the AHL anyways, and a 3rd-round pick. I like it. Andrew says they weren't bold enough, and that's on Ron. At least they started cleaning up the bottom 6. So I'll give them that. Not bold enough, that's fair, but they did start cleaning up the bottom 6. TSN has Kent Hughes now?
We met and talked to him about it. I was with him.
Or is that from earlier on, I would think?
I went through the doctor's advice was to take.
Yeah, it's from the earlier press conference. Yeah. So maybe not bold enough, the Penguins were not, but they did make some moves. I did like the moves they made as well. Now, I think at the same time they know that they're not going to go all in when they're probably facing the Bruins in the first round, right? But they got stronger, and I like what they did, and it didn't cost them an arm and a leg to do it, although it could have been better. Let's see. The San Jose Sharks, we already touched on them with the Timo Meier trade. Let's scroll down a little bit here. They recoup a lot of picks. They recoup a lot of prospects. So I think that's a win for them. They get Henry Thrun for a 3rd. They basically facilitate Nemesnikov being moved as they get him, retain, and then move him back out to the Winnipeg Jets. They move out Nick Bonino and get like a 7th out of it because the 5th, there's like a 5th in, 5th out. So kind of like a wash. Scott Reedy swap, not a big deal. Get a 4th for Nemesnikov. They did a big week of brokering. Here's a 4th to get Nemesnikov to the Jets. Here's some money here, money there. Henry Thrun, okay, we'll get him down the road for a 3rd. In terms of deals today, Andreas Janssen, Zetterlund, Okotiuk, Mukhamadullin, 1st, 2nd, 7th. I like all those deals for the Sharks, and it will make them stronger down the road, although it's probably not as much on Timo Meier as you thought they would have gotten, nor maybe that they were getting offered in the first place initially. But for the Sharks, they did what they had to do. They sold off on a lot of pieces. Just the time will tell on was the value that they got back enough. Now, the Seattle Kraken, I don't think they did enough. They didn't do anything at all, actually. Now, I do have some leeway for them as an expansion franchise. They're scared to say, listen, we have a lot of guys who are in their 30s and are performing well, but we're in our 2nd season. We can't afford to trade 1sts and 2nds in the next few years. That I can understand. That's why I have more lenience for them than I do Calgary or Florida. But Seattle, I would have thought they would do something, at the very least JVR or maybe John Klingberg. I'm not sure. But in the end, it is a quiet month, just a February 5th deal as they acquired Jacob Megna for a 4th. And it could be a 4th this year or their owner, Colorado's. So that's about it. They got Jacob Megna and they move on. St. Louis Blues now. Let's see St. Louis. I like what they did as well I keep saying off season and draft, this deadline. The Blues go ahead and move out Tarasenko, who wasn't going to re-sign, and they recoup picks and value. They go ahead and move out Ryan O'Reilly, who maybe wouldn't have been re-signing. They get a 1st, a 2nd, a 3rd, and some value. They get Zach Dean for the expiring Ivan Barbashev, who might be coming back. They pick up Jakub Vrana for dirt cheap at 50% retained, who's been great when healthy and in the lineup. So I'd call the St. Louis Blues one of the top 3, if not the biggest, but I'll say a top 3 winner of the deadline. definitely up there. Great deadline for the Blues. Tampa Bay Lightning, they move out a lot of value, but again, it doesn't really matter for them for this core. They're going all in. First, second, third, fourth, fifth, and Cal Foot for Tanner Jeannot, who will likely be extended on a cheap deal. And they pick up Michael Esimo, is that how you pronounce it? Esimo for Nemesnikov at 50% retained. Not a big deal. This would be their one big deal, I'd say, Tanner Jeannot. I'd say that was really what they did. I don't think I have anything else to say. I already broke down the Jeannot move. I like it for the Lightning. It's costly. It's way more than he should have cost. There's a tax, the luxury tax we paid as a dynasty. There's the dynasty tax that you have to pay. But in the end, he'll help. The picks won't as much for this group, but it's way over value. I think it's fair to say that. Toronto Maple Leafs, very busy the last month. Ryan O'Reilly and Noel Acciari in the lineup. Yeah, because this is from Minnesota. Yeah, technically. So O'Reilly, Acciari, McCabe, Lafferty, Gustafsson, a first, a third, Luke Shen, Radim Zahora, all in. Moving out, multiple picks. First, second, third, fourth, first, second, Joey Anderson, Gogolev, Rasmus Sandin, a deal that I did not like. A third, Pierre Engvall out for the third. A third out for Luke Shen. So the Shen move, the Engvall move, whatever, take it or leave it. Gustafsson and a first for Sandin. Good value that you got back, but didn't make sense for you to move him, I don't think, in my opinion. More like decent value, more like fair value, I guess you could call it at this moment. Paid a lot for McCabe and Lafferty. Paid a lot for O'Reilly and Acciari. They're definitely going all in, and it's going to be a smashing first round between the Maple Leafs and the Tampa Bay Lightning. Now, the Vancouver Canucks, as we're getting closer to finishing things off here. The Canucks, they could have moved a lot more. Besser, Miller, Demko, you were hearing all these names. None of them end up getting moved, and they just have the acquisition of Vitaly Kravtsov to keep them warm. They moved out Riley Stillman for Josh Bloom. They moved out Luke Shen for a third. Acquiring Philip Hronik was a great, in terms of a great defenseman to have in your team, that's great. But in terms of why did you give up a first and a second, and in terms of how does he fit your timeline, makes no sense whatsoever. I like Philip Hronik. I think he'll do well in Vancouver. He'll eat minutes. He'll do his job. But for the timeline of your organization and to give up a first and a second to do that, I didn't like it. Curtis Lazar moved out for a fourth. Not bad. And then Wyatt Kalynuk moving out. Yeah, so the Canucks, I'd say they could have done more. And the stuff that they did do, I wasn't a huge fan of it. So I'll just leave it at that for Vancouver. Vegas didn't really do too much. They were tight on money as well, as they picked up Dyson Mayo and moved out the Shea Weber contract to help out the Coyotes getting to the cap floor. They move out Zach Dean. They've drafted 6 times in the first round the last 6 years, right? 17, 18, 19, 20, 21, 22. Yeah, they've drafted in the first round 6 times in 6 years, and they've now traded away 5 of their 6 first-round picks, Zach Dean being the 5th. So they bring back Ivan Barbashev, which is great, but that's costly, and you would think that he's a pure rental as well. They acquired Teddy Bluger, which is very good for their bottom 6, Peter Di Liberatore, and a third-round pick going back to Pittsburgh, and they acquired Jonathan Quick. So in the end, they get a top 6 forward, a bottom 6 forward, a bottom pair D, and a goalie that could start if needed in exchange for all these things. So what they got were all great pieces, things that will help them, things that they needed, but they gave up not a ton of value, but Zach Dean was a bit tough to give up, and a 3rd, 5th, 7th, and other pieces. So in terms of overall, I like what Vegas did very much. I don't think that they're trading all of their first-round picks away as Zach Dean moves out. But overall, I like those 4 acquisitions for the Vegas Golden Knights, and it makes them very strong, and they should likely be winning the Pacific. Washington Capitals, they decided to start becoming sellers as soon as they said Dmitry Orlov is not going to be re-signing here. They move him out and recoup a first, a second, and a third, plus even Craig Smith, who's a useful player. They move out Marcus Johansson for a third. They acquire Rasmus Sandin, which would be a huge piece for them moving forward. You'd think he'd become a pillar in their top 4 moving forward. And they move out Lars Eller for a second. So in the end, they get a first, 2 seconds, 2 thirds, and Rasmus Sandin in exchange for Orlov, Hathaway, Johansson, Gustafsson, Eller, and Boston's first that they had gotten from the Orlov deal. So you can kind of like that first moves into becomes Rasmus Sandin. So I guess let me rephrase that sentence then. They get, because if the first becomes Sandin, they get Sandin 2 seconds and 2/3 in exchange for Lars Eller, Eric Gustafsson, Marcus Johansson, Dmitry Orlov, and Garnet Hathaway. I like this deadline for the Capitals, especially if they can establish themselves as retoolers and not rebuilders. Like Detroit went too far, I found, with it. They're moving back into rebuild. They're taking steps backwards. The Capitals are saying, let's move out the expiring pieces, the guys who aren't coming back. Let's take back some value and then flip that value into pieces to help us next year, such as Rasmus Sandin. I like it very much for Washington. They're not going to make the postseason, but I like what they did. Which Winnipeg Jets is this? Okay, the right Winnipeg Jets. Final team, the Jets. They made only a couple moves, and I like both of them. They acquire Niederreiter and Nemesnikov, 2 middle 6 forwards who will help them defensively and an offensive touch there from Nino in exchange for a second and a fourth. That's it. A clean little bit of GMing there from Shovel Day Off. Nothing more, nothing less. I like it. So there you have it, ladies and gentlemen, the winners and the losers of the deadline. Big losers, Calgary, Florida. Big winners, Washington, St. Louis. Let me see. Sorry. There's one other team that I said one, especially Nashville. Those are the big winners, I would say. But the question will be, how do they use that value? How do they turn it into other things or benefit from it down the road? Huge amounts of trades over the past 15 days, 62 trades in the last 15 days. The previous 10-year average was only 40 over a 15-day period. 62 trades. What a day. Thank you for being a part of all of it, some of it, all of it, whatever you've been a part of. Thank you, ladies and gentlemen, especially for the 3.5 hours this afternoon, the various data casts throughout the evenings of the last week or so. It's been a great ride. Thank you for your time, for your comments, for your viewership, for your donations. It's been a great time. We'll take a pause on the real world of hockey for a little bit. We'll be back with postseason analysis, but we'll be back on more NHL 23 content. Franchise mode, career simulations, and NHL simulations. We'll get a simulation now of the NHL. Who wins the cup after this deadline with this roster like this? Who's going to win in the postseason once we simulate the entire playoffs when the postseason starts? So much more to come in both the virtual and real worlds of hockey, and much more here on the channel. Thank you, ladies and gentlemen, for being a part of it all. Andrew, good stuff today. Thank you for being a part of it yourself. Thank you very much. Your comment is not coming up. Oh, here it is. I see it on my screen, and then I see it there. My pleasure. If you want to join us over on the Discord server for more discussions and breaking news as it happens, that's in the real world of hockey, but as well baseball, football, the franchise modes going on, fantasy sports. That's a great place to be, a hub for all of that over on the Discord server, link in the description. Last thing Jiggles had shared in the Discord server, James Reimer admitted he had hoped to get a chance to chase the cup like Nick Bonino. He said it was unfortunate that nothing came to fruition. Talked to his agent a few times in recent weeks, but said it sounded like nothing was ever imminent. Oh, that's too bad. Poor James Reimer. That makes me feel sad, but hopefully he's still back for more next season. So from all of us here on the bridge of the Enterprise D, Duffy, Friedman, everyone, the Commander, Data as well, thank you for spending the time. Leave a like if you did appreciate the content. 3.5 hours. My mouth's ready to go. I'm done. It's been constant stream. So it's, pride ourselves on that. Thank you for helping to keep it going, because without all of you, I'm just talking to myself, and you help to keep the conversation going. Take care. Thanks, Wes. You too. We'll talk soon, everybody. Have yourselves a great rest of your weekend, a great start to the weekend, a great start to your March break if you are on March break as well. And everyone stay safe. We'll talk soon. Thanks again, and have a great rest of your night.